All right, and we're live, and I am here with the Robin and the Nightwing to my Batman, Artistic Layman and Undertow.
Hello, everyone.
My home city is in ashes.
And also joining us, first time on the channel, glad to have him, Argent Templar.
Hey, nice. Thanks for having me on, guys.
For those, Argent, why don't you just give a explain yourself in your own words, a little synopsis of who you are.
What do you have to say for yourself, young man?
Yeah, for those that aren't familiar with you.
So I run a channel, Argent, obviously. So I do a little bit of everything. I guess kind of the focus I have that makes me a little different from, I guess, kind of other political, religious channels and kind of these spheres is I do a lot of, well, I guess you guys do too, pop culture media stuff. Mm-hmm. I have a series called Reactionary Reviews where I kind of do like a half-hour to 40-minute review where I go on about kind of the political and religious themes of a movie, just kind of look at it from a kind of a different perspective. I kind of started that because a lot of people, whenever I do short movie reviews, they're like, okay, we like the review, but we're not going to give the Shlomos in Hollywood any money, so just tell us the entire plot of the movie. So we don't have to get paid to see it. So yeah, I do a whole bunch of different stuff. I try to vary the content up because I find a lot of people just basically make the same video over and over again. Yeah, that's kind of my issue with Millennial Woes a lot of the time. For the longest time he just did RK and the refugee crisis. So. Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen the Hellraiser movies, Argent?
I've seen the first one.
You should take a look at those sometimes. They have, I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of them are not very good movies, but they have a very good mythology behind them. They have very interesting theological perspective on things like temptation and sin and that sort of thing.
I watched one because I was going to do a bunch for. I did a couple movies for Halloween. I did watch it. I just couldn't think of anything really good to say about it.
Yeah, I've covered that a lot because I think it's a very good analogy for a lot of our current state of culture, opening the Hellraiser box. But all right, so a couple of things I want to cover this week. Let's see, what do we want to get to first? Okay, first thing I want to get to, CNN reporter Reza Aslan, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right because I don't watch CNN because I'm a person. I guess he was somewhere in India interviewing some obscure Hindu sect where they're cannibals, and he's interviewing this savage, and the guy's just like, "Here, eat this. It's human brains." And I guess
this asshole.
And Reza, I guess. He didn't want to be rude. You don't want to be rude. So, so he went ahead and ate human brains on camera.
Jesus.
Over on the Cannibal News Network. We're always looking for a new thing that CNN stands for, so you can't call it the Clinton News Network anymore. So I guess
this
Cannibal
is the guy who wrote this thing of trying to like disprove Jesus, Zealot, the life and times of Jesus of Nazareth.
Yes.
He is. That is where I've heard of this guy. Yes.
He also argues for liberal interpretation of religion. He blames Western imperialism as the reason for Islamic fundamentalism.
Well, here's the thing, and this is what whenever the liberals bring this up, like, look, there is something to the blowback theory. There really is. But that explains part of it, not all of it, okay? That explains even, say, a 9/11 attack. It doesn't explain in mass flooding into Europe in attempts to conquer it, okay? That's not a response. That's not blowback.
Well, I mean, that's why they invaded Spain 1,500 years ago was because the Spanish were
Yeah.
occupying Saudi Arabia.
And that's the other thing. Like,
Clearly.
look, again, if you hit a hornet's nest with a stick, you might get stung. There's certainly something to blow back. But, you know, these hornets have been stinging people for a long time, okay? It's not like they were perfectly peaceful and then we got there and fucked with them.
Anyways, he's not as bad. The worst person is Melissa Harris Perry, if anyone knows who she is.
Oh, my God.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh, good grief.
I don't know
is-
how she got on TV. She talks like a retard. Her politics aside, I mean, she just sounds like she's got a mouthful of peanut butter all the time.
It takes a lot to actually trigger me and make me physically disgusted. But when she said that the problem with our society is we think children belong to their parents, and we have to accept that children belong to everyone, that actually really triggered me.
Yeah.
Excuse
me.
Even in a place like MSNBC, I have no idea how that woman got her job. I mean, like I said, politics aside, she's just bad at public speaking. She's just bad at the actual meat of doing her job. You know, I don't know if, you know, she had to go through Rachel Maddow's casting couch or something to even get that job, but
It's such a fucking freak show over there. You got Chris Thrill Up My Leg Matthews. You got fucking Rachel Mad Cow. You have Melissa Harris Perry. You have, what's his name? Joe Scarborough.
yeah, Scarborough, they're token quote unquote conservative.
You have that?
This is going to be really, really weird, but I used to go to school with Joe Scarborough's son.
Huh. You mean his wife's son?
Oh.
Speaking of a wife's son, Jake Tapper, one of the faces at CNN, he was apparently interviewed, and when he's arguing with his 12-year-old son, his 12-year-old son wants to give him some lip. You know what he calls him?
A cock?
Fake news.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Jake Tapper's enough of a cuck. He can't even get a shred of respect from the mailman's son.
Oh, okay. If I can sidetrack there's the ultimate fake news story I have to tell. Okay, so in Canada, we're having a leadership race for the Conservative Party, and there's a candidate running named Kelly Leach, and she's kind of viewed as the Canadian Trump, even though she's nowhere near as edgy as him.
Well, the Canadian, that's sort of.
But what CBC did, which is our state broadcaster, is they got an actor to get a bunch of T-shirts that say "White Power" on them, and they also had "Make Canada Great Again" T-shirts. And so, with hidden cameras, they went to Kelly Leach's riding, and they tried to sell the T-shirts to people on film. And a lot of the people were just buying the "Make Canada Great Again" T-shirts. But when they did, this black reporter ran out and started interrogating them. So they were literally trying to entrap the people to do something that's illegal in Canada to buy that. So that's the most fake news I can think of.
To go back to Reza Aslan, I was reading the rest of this article and it said he then drank an alcoholic drink from a human skull with human brains.
He drank from it.
And he was
That's almost
What
badass.
does he think? He's a space marine?
And then apparently he was also. Oh yeah, apparently the Hindu he was talking to was smeared with the ashes from cremated human bodies on his face.
Totally normal. Just
And
like
apparently
you
they're
and me.
worried. Yeah, because they're apparently outraged because this is creating a negative perception of what Hindus are all about.
I flat out don't know enough about Hinduism to say, what quote unquote mainstream Hinduism is, but
It's not that. I know enough to say that it's not bad.
No, it's not that bad, but some of the offshoots of it are pure fucking evil.
Mm.
All right. Like that one Indiana Jones movie wasn't that far off, all right?
Clearly.
Although,
clearly.
Hinduism, it literally depends on who you ask because it literally changes from sect to sect. Could be mainstream from a certain perspective.
So I think it was Tuesday was International Women's Day, right? I want to say it was Tuesday.
Paying attention.
And interestingly enough, and I went ahead, I got up, I made my sandwich for work, and then I don't know, somehow I got distracted. I ended up leaving my sandwich at home. So the day without women for me turned out to be a day without a sandwich. So that actually makes me worry that maybe the feminists are getting into some meme magic. Like we really got to watch out. They might have been working some meme magic there. But here's the thing, and I've made this rant on here before, but I'll make it again just to honor this wonderful communist holiday. Here's the deal, ladies. You belong to men. That's the stone cold reality of the situation here. You always have, and you always will. All right? Your ability to even begin to protect yourself from men is given to you by other men, via the state or something as simple as a invention like the gun. That was all handed to you by other men. On your own, you really haven't done jack shit. All right? Other than, of course, make fucking babies, which is pretty goddamn important, I might add. All those men that made stuff, you made those men. So it's kind of important. But on your own, you haven't done jack shit. You belong to fucking men. That's how it is. That's always how it's been. All right? There is no fucking matriarchy in this damn world. All right? Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. Never has, never will. Certainly no advanced society. Because here's the thing. This wonderful thing we call civilization. This beautiful, wonderful thing. The skyscrapers and that smartphone in your pocket and this, microphone right in front of my face. The water running, the electricity, people picking up your trash, putting men on the moon. That's all. Men did that shit, okay? 99% of it, men did that shit. Now, in all fairness, we do that shit for you, really, all right? Without your influence, we'd probably still be in the cave, beating each other with rocks, in all fairness, all right? We make civilization for you. You inspire us to. We build it so we can lay it at your feet, okay? All these MGTOWs that are out there like, oh, you can't put women on a pedestal. No, in an actual healthy society, of course you would put women on a pedestal because that's where your prized possession belongs.
Ironically enough, in a patriarchal society.
Yes. And you have tremendous power, women. You don't even understand the power you have in your femininity. Feminism has lied to you so badly and robbed you of that power, okay? Men kill for you. They die for you, all right? They lay down and fucking die for you, all right? Women have been able to destroy the most powerful men in the world with words, which is fucking words. You have no idea the power you wield, okay? But you ultimately belong to men. You always have, and you always will. And if the men of the West don't fucking drop their balls and throw you on the couch and fuck you and slap your ass and put you back in the goddamn kitchen and make them a sandwich, eventually the men of the Middle East will do just that. And it will be much, much harsher, much less enjoyable for you, sweetie.
I know. I think 3D women are degeneracy in general.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's my wonderful message for you ladies on International Women's Day. But
Well, I just like to say, women, once we can grow babies in test tubes, and once we can make 2D waifus into 3D waifus using cybernetics, then you will be obsolete. And we can go and with our Hyperborean beauties and just leave the degeneracy behind once and for all.
It's funny. Talking about waifus a couple weeks ago, our one frequent caller, Black James, called in and said, like, I don't think any of that's a big deal because people just always been fantasizing. Fantasies just always. And I'm like, yeah, but I think what's kind of a canary in a coal mine is, like, God, it used to be you fantasized about just, the the fantasy woman, fucking Wonder Woman, the dominatrix supermodel beauty queen, as the old pop song went. Now you look at like waifu guys are fantasizing about a cute girl that's nice to them. Like you're just fantasizing about shit you should just have. You know what I mean?
That was something that Anti-Dem said about My Little Pony, is that like they're just nice girls.
That was and I realize many on the alt-right don't care for him and the feeling is mutual, but Jordan Owen did a video years ago talking about My Little Pony, in which he argued, and it was one of the first times I heard it. This was probably like this was right shortly after I heard of Bronies, where he's like, you may not be attracted to the ponies, and you shouldn't be, but you may be attracted to the type of women they represent. And, it's just men are so starved for any kind of feminine virtue, any kind of real feminine women around them, that some of them are jerking off the cartoon horses. It's gotten so bad.
I mean, like, I think bronies are kind of really creepy, but I don't know. Like, I watched the show once because I wanted to know what it was about. I thought it was a pretty good cartoon show, to be honest.
It's not
what most people say.
It was an entertaining show. It was nice and wholesome. It was nice to see something that wasn't degeneracy.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice to see in a kid's cartoon these days, especially one geared towards girls, the like 2 episodes I've watched, where like the males in it aren't treated like blithering idiots and or assholes. Because that's just such a common thing in just TV in general, but especially kids' cartoons. The girl's always so wise and the guy's, caught in the blinds or something. Yeah. But no, it's not a bad show. It's just, and there's certainly nothing wrong with liking something that you're not the target audience for. There's plenty of things I'm very fond of.
Bronies are cancer, though.
I'm not the target audience for, but like I said, I wanted to give the bronies the benefit of the doubt so much, but the more you're exposed to them, the more you're like, nah. I mean, I've loved some cartoons before that I guess were sort of girls' cartoons, like Powerpuff Girls and Kim Possible back in the day. I thought, and I mean, hell,
those weren't girl cartoons.
I was like late teens, early 20s when Kim Possible was on. I still thought it was the tits. But
those are both pretty good. Of course, my favorite was, I really loved Teen Titans.
Yeah, I did too. And Chris will hate you for that because he says it's not what this Teen Titans are supposed to be.
No, I don't. My biggest problem with Teen Titans, why I could never get into it at the time, was I compared it to contemporary shows at a time like Justice League, and it was just,
it was a totally different tone.
I mean, I was being harsh on it because of the art style and some of the writing style, but at the time I used to call it baby's first superhero cartoon.
Well, it's kind of sad, but there's basically My Little Pony is the last implicit stand of Western animation. Like, what else is there anymore?
Yeah.
I mean, there was Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I was like, meh. And then they made the degenerate.
Yeah.
I mean,
they made the degenerate sequel I refused to watch.
There's adult animation like Rick and Morty that's pretty good.
But that's not like animation for animation's sake. It's more of it's
There's
more
a cartoon on a Cartoon Network I've seen a few of that I really like called We Bare Bears.
That's interesting.
I actually I really like that cartoon, to be honest. And I haven't seen a great deal of it because I don't generally watch Cartoon Network, so I wouldn't even know when it's on. But when I stumble across it, I'm like, this is actually pretty funny. Like, I flip into the channels and I see a polar bear and a panda bear and a brown bear playing basketball, and I'm like, all right, I'll bite. And but I think it was TLDR did something where he was shitting on Steven Universe, where he said like so many of these cartoons have become like sitcoms for kids.
That's ER.
And ER did that. Yes, ER did that. You're right. And he's right. I mean, that was kind of why I liked We Bare Bears. It reminded me of back when sitcoms didn't suck, like in the 90s. And I'm like, this is kind of cool. It's just like 3 bears and they just have mundane adventures. This is kind of funny.
I find another thing that happened like in the last couple of years is a lot of cartoon shows they give like 10 episodes to, then they'd immediately cancel. and that was just kind of like what happened near the end. Was they just constantly cancel everything before it had a chance to get going?
Yeah.
You know what I used to love when I was a kid? That was sort of the first of these cartoons and sitcoms was Rocko's Modern Life, and I can like I'll catch those on like YouTube sometimes, and they still stand up. They're actually pretty damn good. Hell, even as a kid, my dad used to watch Rocko with me. He loved it.
Did anyone here watch YTV as a kid?
Why? That sounds familiar, but I can't place it.
Maybe that's a Canadian thing.
I haven't heard of it.
Tom G says bring back the second Thundercats series. I kind of liked the Thundercats reboot, to be honest.
It wasn't bad. You know what wasn't bad either was there was a He-Man reboot in like 2003 that was decent. I caught a few of those that were pretty good. The Ninja Turtles cartoon that started in 2003 was damn good.
Oh, that was really good.
Although,
actually.
I mean, I have more nostalgia for the 80s cartoon. I have to admit, it's pretty much superior to the 80s cartoon.
Oh, yeah, it's way better.
I always liked the 03 one.
In fact, the last episode of the 03 cartoon is they like travel to a parallel universe and meet the 80s cartoon guys.
I was actually shocked when I watched the first couple episodes of the 2003 because I had just seen it as a joke, like Ninja Turtles, and then I'm like, wow, this is actually like pretty good.
It's in tone, it's somewhere between the 80s cartoon and the original comic book. In fact, even in its overall like universe structure, it's about midway between. It borrows elements from both.
There's a DuckTales reboot?
Yeah, there is coming out soon, which now obviously modern animation has all manner of problems, mostly being paused. That's actually the current Ninja Turtles cartoon that's on Nickelodeon. Did an episode 2 where they met the 80s cartoon. You know, because parallel universe stories, you could do that kind of shit. But yeah, the DuckTales reboot, I saw the trailer for it. It actually doesn't look half bad.
I love the original DuckTales.
Oh yeah, DuckTales was phenomenal back in the day. And that started a massive animation boom. A lot of people don't realize, unless you're a fucking dork like me. Like DuckTales' success is responsible for shows like Animaniacs and Tiny Toons existing. Because at the time it was considered a really big risk to make a reasonably expensive syndicated cartoon to just air in the afternoon.
Honestly, I didn't mind Fairly Odd Parents or Danny Phantom.
I remember Danny Phantom being
I've seen a little bit of those, and they didn't strike like. I mean, I was a little old for them at the time, obviously, but I remember thinking like, yeah, this. And Danny Phantom actually seemed like an interesting concept.
Yeah.
The only problem is like his kind of love interest is like an SJW, but
yeah.
But now that's back when it was just a goth girl. See, I'm old enough to remember when girls dressing kind of freaky like that meant they were quirky and fun.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm old enough to remember when a girl having like pink or green hair meant she was a good time to be around.
Oh, anyone remember Gargoyles?
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh,
I remember a little bit of that. Yeah. I didn't catch a lot. I actually got sucked into it because I was a big Star Trek fan as a kid. And somebody told me that like some of the Star Trek guys were doing the voices and shit for it. So like that kind of got me into it. And it was a pretty damn good action cartoon for the time.
Oh yeah, I mean, talk about a triumph and accomplishment of such an epic story on a cartoons TV show. Holy cow!
Did you guys have Reboot in the States, or is that only in Canada?
Yes.
We had it. I never caught it, but I never really watched it. But
no, there is like they're back during the 90s. I found like they were really experimenting with stuff. Oh, now I remember. Okay, the best animated thing I think in the last 10 years is, has anyone here seen Mystery Incorporated?
No, but I've heard of it.
Oh, it's really good.
The Scooby-Doo reboot?
Yeah, it's really good.
I'm very interested in the fact that they have a Jinro the Wolf Brigade reference in it.
It's like really I was shocked when I watched it. It's for a much older audience.
Is that the one where it's kind of like a continuation of the Zombie Island stuff?
A bit. I mean, it has like an ongoing plot and like continuity and stuff. It's kind of weird, but it's really good.
Yeah, I remember in this version. Version, Velma's a snarky wise guy.
But I remember loving Scooby-Doo as a kid. I adored Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo could do no wrong to me. And it was like I was like 15 or something when that Zombie Island movie came out. And like I remember I just like I had to check it out because it felt like, I hadn't seen Scooby-Doo in years, and it felt like I was checking in on an old friend. And I was amazed at how good Zombie Island was. Like, I mean, I could watch it now and it would stand up.
That was my first reactionary review ever, was Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
That's a damn, like...
That's what started the series.
Let me put it this way. If you're babysitting a younger relative and you need something to put in Scooby-Doo and Zombie Island, because you won't be bored watching it. It's actually decent.
The music is really cool, good. It's terror time again. That movie actually scared me as a kid. Like, the zombie designs are really good. But yeah, it's just sad, you know what I think is cancerous? I really hate CG animation. Mm-hmm. Like all the new Star Wars shit. I just think it looks really bad. Well,
what I think the problem is with CG animation is that, like, it's not something you can do well on the cheap. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's a lot more corners you can cut with 2D animation. Like the current Ninja Turtles cartoon on Nickelodeon, the turtles look like they have Down syndrome in it to me or something. Like, I just don't like the overall design of the characters in it. And I mean, if kids are loving it these days, that's all well and good. I'm happy that Ninja Turtles exists in some sort of recognizable form anymore. That's wonderful. But they don't look as bad when drawn in 2D like this. But the 3D renders just look terrible to me. Especially Michelangelo, although he always was kind of retarded, so maybe that fit. Yeah, I can't. Like, I watched a little bit of that, and I'm like, this is... I mean, granted, I'm not the target audience, being a man in his 30s, but I just can't get down with this. I mean, hell, I didn't even mind the Michael Bay movies as much as those redesigns were, shall we say, questionable. In fact, I actually really liked the last one of those two Michael Bay movies because there were so many elements from like the 80s cartoon in it that it's like the whole time I'm like, I can't stay mad at you, movie. You have Krang and the Technodrome in here.
To be fair, Michael Bay only produced those.
It's like, and also, like, I remember well over 10 years ago, shortly after the about a little under a decade, I guess, right after the Transformers movies, when they were starting to talk about a live-action Ninja Turtle movies, and they were like, we're going to make them aliens or something like that. Like, as much as people want to crap on these two movies, when you compare it to what we could have had, it's fucking Citizen Kane, all right? Like, we were going to have an epic train wreck here. I mean, I never thought I would see Bebop and Rocksteady live action on the big screen. So, as much as that movie was flawed, I'm like, I can't stay mad at you, movie.
I have a confession.
Playing Casey Jones, everything.
I actually liked the third Transformers movie.
I never saw that, but I genuinely enjoyed the first Transformers movie. And I don't think the second one is nearly as bad as everyone says. It's by no means a good movie, but when I see some of these YouTube reviewers, like Spoonie back in the day, was like, it's the worst movie I've ever seen. And I'm like...
Sorry, one or two?
Two. And I'm like,
Spoonie, two is pretty fucking bad.
Yeah, but the worst movie you've ever seen, Spoonie, it ain't even the worst movie you've reviewed. The first one's good, though. I actually like the first one. I haven't seen the third one. I just never got around to seeing it. I've seen trailers for, like, a recent one that actually looks kind of cool. let's see. What else did I want to ramble on about? I hadn't covered it on the show, but I can't even remember if it was this week or before. Like, the news cycles are happening so fast anymore. But good old Base Stick Man. It was the world's most wonderful superhero. You've probably seen all the memes of him, like photoshopped in with the 300 people or the Avengers or something. It's if you're at all on social media, you've seen memes of good old Stick Man. Well, anyway, he's this guy who basically got a big old wooden stick and a wooden shield. And when Antifa was doing Antifa stuff, he decided to meet the punch a Nazi game with beat a communist with a stick game. And the good news here is people got a legal fund for him. People raised money. And last I heard, at least, he's not going to be facing charges because it was self-defense. Well,
it was the defense of others as well.
Yeah, he was beating people who were attacking people. I mean, not all heroes wear capes.
That's right. Some of them carry sticks.
Yep, look at that.
Oh,
look at
if
that. Real life superhero right there for us.
Do you guys know Earl of Grey?
No.
I follow him on Twitter. I don't really know him.
Oh, okay. We'll know of him. One of the times his page got taken down. I don't know if this is too edgy, but I'll say it anyways. There's a guy in Australia who put acid in the lube dispenser at a gay club. And Earl of Grey did a post with that, and he said, "Not all heroes wear capes." Article. That was the first time his page got taken down.
Oh man.
I did that on mine. You know how thoughts are doing that dog filter thing, like where they put the dog ears on. There was a father who caught his daughter doing that, and he locked her in a kennel. It's like, if you're gonna act like a dog, you're gonna live like one. And he locked her in. So I posted that with "Not all heroes wear capes."
There's one where this dad was making fun of his daughter's slutty Instagram post by dressing in the same outfit and doing the same pose. And he ended up with more followers than her. Oh, good times. So yeah, I don't have a lot to say about good old Base Stick Man there, but I just had to bring it up because some good news here. And that's the thing. The left has no idea the Pandora's box, the Hellraiser's box they insist on opening up with this. We're gonna punch a Nazi shit. It was kind of a good meme when they were passing around the pictures of Captain America and Indiana Jones and stuff. Yeah, punching Nazis, this is American as apple pie. That's cute and all. It was some good. It's the best memes the left has ever come up with in years. I'll give them that. But the problem there, guys, is that we have the guns. All right, that's what you're failing to remember here. Your side is made up of a bunch of faggots that have never held a gun before and dindoos that hold them sideways. All right. So you go ahead and play your little "Let's Punch a Nazi" game, since you identify a Nazi as anyone just slightly right of Karl Marx, and see how well that goes for you there.
And who do you think the army would side with?
Yeah, right now the right wing. Well, we have all the guns, we control all the land that grows the food, and we have the Justice Department. So if you really want a civil war, keep it up. It's going to last all of it.
I think they're just so uninformed and delusional about everything. Look at Sarah Silverman calling for a military coup.
Yeah, a military coup
to do with her nasty ass.
Yeah, a military coup is going to side with Sarah Silverman and not Trump. That's how that's going to roll out.
Well, I mean, Hitler and they had to deal with commies who were badasses who were willing to die and were raised in Siberia fighting grizzly bears. And then we have to deal with these just fucking faggots, these kids who did any of you see those articles about how they had to bring in puppies and have nap time and coloring books because the kids were so depressed that
I highly object to that because there's no reason you should subject an innocent dog to a leftist.
I mean, I have to confess, I did actually cry when Justin Trudeau won. Like, I actually ironically did.
Yeah, but that was weeping for the dead soul of your country.
And I cried when Obama
hit your
won.
way.
Just because they're just the worst.
The thing, especially in America, and it's just generally true of civilization in general, but these far leftists, what they don't seem to grasp is they exist because right-wingers suffer them to live. At the end of the day, you know, right-wingers are the ones that make civilization. Leftists are fucking parasites at best. All right? And also, like, they're weak. They're just weak. So the idea that these social justice warriors are going to pick a fight with the right wing, that's like a flea deciding it's going to pick a fight with a dog. First of all, you have no chance of winning. Second of all, you can't exist without the dog. Whereas the dog is much better off without you. It's insane. Like I said, right after Trump won, and right after he swore in, they're like, we're going to start a civil war. I'm like, it's going to be the shortest civil war in recorded history. You know, if I were to fight in it, I wouldn't even need to take a full day off work. All right, and just take a long lunch. Just tell the boss, I gotta go kill some communists. I need a long lunch.
Well, you got like Castro, you got Che Guevara, you got like Mao and those crazy ass guys in China, and then you have just some like guy with dyed hair with like gay clothing and like all these piercings, who is just high on weed all the time. And that's who you have to fight. I would make people
hit his bong over my head.
I made people cry in university frequently. Just because they were not used to having someone stand up to them. Like, I remember what happened was they were talking about how like white people fucked over Africa and caused the Rwandan genocide. And I'm like, so you're saying that black people have no agency and that like they aren't able to make their own moral decisions and they just do whatever white people tell them to do, and that no one in that country was able to like come up with a moral and I just kind of went through that and like, so you're saying Ethiopia is shitty because 4,000 years of civilization were wiped out for it being occupied for 3 years by Italy, and they didn't know how to respond, so they just started crying. Because I'm like, technically you're a lot more racist than me because you believe black people have no moral agency, and they didn't know how to respond, so people just started crying.
I just started clapping, but you know, that's just my American showing through.
Yeah. But that was just like how it often went. Like, these people have just never, and this is something that like Dennis Prager talks about a lot. These people grow up in such an isolated, like sheltered world. Like, it's like if you're right wing, you are constantly bombarded with left wing stuff. Probably most of the people you know are left wing, all the media and just all that stuff. But if you're left wing, you can live in this bubble where you'll never meet someone who disagrees with you.
And it's funny too that the stereotype out there of like the right wingers were the ones that grew up sheltered. And while I mean, yeah, there's maybe some very religious kids that grew up rather sheltered from the outside world. For the most part, that's the exact opposite is true.
You know, and I would actually disagree with Mr. Prager there, because the first part of his statement was that these people grow up. That's not true. They never do.
Yeah, they grow old.
Well, it's funny because a lot of the times not being sheltered makes you edgy. No, what was the expression? A conservative is a liberal mugged by reality. I say an edgelord is a liberal raped by diversity. No, like my friend Abstract, where he grew up, a bunch of Hindus moved in, and they like started up the Bloods and the Crips, and there started to be like shooting, like gang wars, and like none of this had existed like a couple years prior, and that made him like really edgy.
That would.
Someone's mentioning gypsies in the chat. It's funny because I lost the best friend I had ever, like my best friend from like age 8 to like 22, because I made fun of gypsies. And he's like, "We can't be friends anymore. You're evil." And I'm like, he's the only person I've ever met who's defended gypsies.
In high school, I remember, it was one of those throw racism back in the liberal things. I had said something instead of somebody gypped me, I said one time somebody Jewed me in high school, and I remember this kid got all mad at me like it's racist, and I'm like, he goes, "You should have said somebody gypped you," and I said, "Well, that's racist towards gypsies," and like he didn't realize that that's what that meant, and he I could see in his face this existential crisis. Oh, I'm not racist. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? Oh, Shia LaBeouf. And by the way, do go ahead and message me on Skype. The Bechtloff, if you want to be a caller, we'll get you in. But Shia LaBeouf, as we all know, he had the live stream. His original plan was he was setting up this camera outside of an art museum, and he was going to chant, he will not divide us," for 4 years, because that proved something somehow. And which, by the way, Shyla, that's the first fault. You needed to plan for 8 years. But anyways, that got promptly trolled the fuck in a matter of days. And they set it up somewhere else, and that was like in a matter of hours. Well, this time, he's got you, right? Well, he sets up a camera looking at a flag in the middle of a field, and the flag just says, "He will not divide us." Well, those evil geniuses on 4chan and 8chan and all the other autism centrals on the internet, they calculated where this was. They knew what state it was in. I guess Tennessee is where that. They looked at like planes going overhead and weather patterns and the stars.
They triangulated it from one camera angle.
They figured out, staring up at the sky from an empty field, they figured out where this damn thing was. These motherfuckers should be working for NASA. It's amazing. And one of them, not all heroes wear capes. We don't know who this guy was. He found it, went to it, took the flag down, and ran a MAGA shirt and a MAGA hat up that flagpole. That was beautiful. That was. I'm just so sick of all this winning. I don't know what to do with it all. All right?
Okay, you know what winning I'm actually kind of sad about? That they shut down the IMDb message boards.
Why is that?
I just like the I just like the IMDb message boards.
Why
they
did
shut them down
down?
because too many alt-right people were trolling it with Pepe memes.
Oh,
So they removed it. And
Movies.
I don't know, it just there's always a lot of interesting movie information about movies there, but they got rid of it.
So I don't know what Shiloh's going to do next. What he ought to do is try and get his fucking career back on track. But that's
Is he Jewish or?
I don't know what he is. He's a massive fuck up. That's why he doesn't have a career anymore. Like people forget. Like it wasn't too long ago. This guy was a rising star. All right,
Yep.
he had that. He had that Disney Channel heat. Then he had that one movie called Holes, I think it was. It was like a Disney Channel movie that was a theatrical release. And then he's in the Transformers movies. He's in the new Indiana Jones movies. They were talking about giving his character from Indiana Jones 4 his own fucking movie. Now, whether or not that would have been a shit show, point is they were going to do that. All right. And the reason they don't do that anymore is because he's such a massive fuck up. He is uninsurable on the set of most movies. He's where like Robert Downey Jr. was like back in the late 90s. Like if you've ever, again, Transformers 2 that we were talking about earlier, there's a scene where like they teleport to Egypt or something, and Shyla burns his hand through the fucking wormhole for some reason. Which why is that a thing that would happen? Well, the reason that's a thing that would happen is because Shia LaBeouf fucking broke his hand during the filming of this movie doing some stupid stunts on like a motorcycle or some shit. So at that point in the filming, his hand was all bandaged up. Which again is, you know, and people forget when you're an actor, when you're on the set of these movies, your body isn't your own anymore, all right? You fucking yourself up fucks up a multi-million-dollar project. And at the very least derails it slightly, if not entirely. And when that happens, if it were to, you know, seriously delay filming or perhaps even can a whole movie, these movie companies have these actors insured. You know, if this actor dies halfway between filming this movie, we sank millions of dollars in and we can't recast it, and we have to abandon this project, we want to recoup our losses. Well, Shiloh's such a fuck up, he can't even be insured anymore. So nobody's going to bring him in on any kind of movie, knowing that he's going to shoot himself in the dick, and we're not going to be able to film with him anymore. Because he's going to get himself arrested, beating up a guy in a MAGA hat while doing a stupid live stream. Like, that's like, he thinks, I really think in his head, he thinks he's saving the world from evil Trump. But really, half of this is that he thinks this is going to get him stardom again. You know what I mean? He thinks he's going to do this and get his career back on track, when all he's doing is making himself further unemployable. He will not divide us. Somebody made a comic.
Shia LaBeouf.
Somebody made I think it was Patriarchy Comics, where it was like Shila's ass cheeks both had his face on it, saying he will not divide us. And there's like a black version of Trump in the prison shower going, wrong. The internet's driving away the last bit of his sanity. Oh, man.
Fucking Shia LaBeouf.
Let's see. What else did I want to talk about? Okay, so in comic news, and then I'll do a little bit of comic stuff, and then we'll probably talk about Logan, the movie, because I just saw it today. So in comic news, Nick Spencer, I think is his name, the guy writing Captain America, where he had that reveal over the last summer, where it was like Captain America's actually a Hydra agent and was the whole time. And that's not remotely retarded, right? Well, he managed to out-retard that. He made another long-standing Marvel character a Hydra agent, and he was the whole time or something like that. And he managed to pick.
No, that would make too much sense.
The Marvel character that would make the least amount of fucking sense. Magneto. He decided Magneto. I hate mutants. But no, he decided Magneto is a Nazi. You know, the guy who was Jewish and was in a concentration camp during World War II, he's a Nazi. He's a Hydra agent. Because that makes a lot of fucking sense.
So this guy wrote for the History Channel?
Yeah, he's also an alien who works at a pawn shop.
No, don't even say that. This is Marvel, so he probably is a Nazi alien.
Like, seriously, man, this is, look, and I will reiterate this point.
Hi, I'm Magneto, and this is my pawn shop.
Here's the thing, and this is what I said about the Captain America thing. Look, the best part and the worst part of both Marvel and DC are that anything that is done can be undone. You know, any stupid shit a writer comes up with, another writer can find some convoluted reason why that was all bullshit. Nothing to see here, folks. And sometimes good stuff gets undone, and that's the sad part of it.
It's not a bonfire aesthetic, then?
No.
I don't know if anyone got that reference.
So the thing about it is, like, it's not just that, okay, there's this twist ending at the end where it's like, I'm a Hydra agent. That's not what upset me, because I've been reading comics for a long time. You know, I plowed through the Ben Reilly is the real Spider-Man shit in the mid-90s. All right. There's been rough times when a writer wanted to shock you. Everything you know is wrong. Well, I like the stuff I know. The problem with this was the moral of that Captain America issue was, if you are a nationalist, if you are a patriot, if you just happen to believe that your nation should have fucking borders, you're a Nazi. That's what the moral of that was. That's why they wrote what was basically a Donald Trump speech and put it in the mouth of Red Skull in that issue. And that's what pissed me off about it. Because not only was it bad storytelling, it was bad storytelling for this stupid political. Now, in all fairness, I think it was maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago we talked about Marvel is backing down from this shit. They have realized how badly they have fucked themselves recently.
Marvel is super pause.
And they have said we're going to be moving away from politics in our stories. Because the simple fact of the matter is, Marvel movies are basically the only thing that can make any money at the box office. People are more interested in Marvel characters than in the entire history of that company, and they can't sell comic books to save their souls. Now, not everyone who goes see Avengers and thinks that was a great movie is going to want to go pick up an Avengers comic, but some of them are. You should have seen some uptick in the last few years of sales, and instead you've seen it dropping like a stone. Because just take Captain America. Let's say you saw all the Captain America movies and you were like, Captain America's fucking awesome. I want to go read some Captain America comics. And then you go to the comic book store and it's this black guy as Captain America. But then you think, okay, well, it's Sam Wilson. He's Captain America now for some reason. I know him from the movies. I can get down with this. And you pick up the comic book and it's Black Lives Matter, the fucking comic. You put that shit right back on the shelf. Let alone if you pick one up and Captain America's like Hail Hitler. You're definitely putting that one back on the fucking shelf.
That literally happened in Civil War. There was like the black woman who's like, he was a good boy. He didn't do nothing. He was in whatever that Slavic country was as an aid worker. And then that was what made Iron Man go on like his whole thing. Was the guy who didn't do nothing, who was killed in random violence.
Wait, in the original Civil War story?
No, in the movie.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah.
There's that woman who's like,
he was a good boy. He didn't do right. But, I mean, again, like, even the movie isn't, like... The Captain America Civil War movie tries more to be just a story of two men who have grown to be brothers that circumstance brings them at each other's throat. It doesn't shove as much politics down your throat as these comic books try to, and so badly. The original Civil War storyline is actually pretty interesting. Iron Man goes way fucking overboard in it, but he's got a point in it. And it's a pretty interesting read. But, good storytelling.
I'm joking. I actually really like the movie.
But see, good storytelling should be asking questions. It shouldn't be trying to shove answers down your throat. And sci-fi in particular should be that way. And that's, in a broad sense, what these are. And that's what made the Civil War movie good. Like, look, it had some politics in it. And, you and your buddies could, after you saw the movie, maybe be arguing the points of it. But primarily, it was just good old-fashioned superhero fun. We're here to just try and do some good storytelling.
I think they presented both sides in, like, a fair and sympathetic way.
Yeah.
Like, I think Iron Man had a point, and Captain America had a point. And actually, well, I kind of sided with Captain America throughout the movie. I was really torn between the two sides.
It actually was slightly more fair than the original Civil War comic because, like I said, Iron Man just manages to piss away any manner of moral high ground he has to his actions during the Civil War comic. But again, you get to this stuff now, and it's like, first of all, you replace every white man character you can possibly find with some manner of non-white man, which in and of itself is going to piss people off, especially the sheer number of it. But also, it's just, and then there's the Muslim Miss Marvel. It's Marvel Comics is rough right now. I mean, I read comics. Like, it used to be like, I'd get a stack of them each fucking week. And I went to the comic book store today and pulled out my box that I hadn't been there in 2 weeks, and there were 3 comic books in it. And none of them were Marvel. I picked up, some crossovers Boom Comics and DC were doing, a Justice League Power Rangers crossover and a Green Lantern Planet of the Apes crossover. The latter is much better than it has any right to be. And I read the Darkwing Duck comic book because I have a soft spot for Darkwing Duck. But that was all that was in my box this week. I'm not subscribed to any Marvel comics. And I was a huge Marvel comic fan for so long. But they're just unreadable right now.
Is DC less paused than Marvel?
DC is less paused comic-wise right now because they are trying to get back to just, being superhero comics first and foremost. And Marvel is so unbelievably heavy-handed with this shit. It's so obnoxious. Like, I don't think I could enjoy these comic books if I was a liberal. It's because it's bad storytelling first and foremost.
Yeah, because some people, I've just seen people say that DC is more right-wing than Marvel in general.
I would say DC is more apolitical.
More apolitical?
At least currently. I mean, it's, ups and downs and all, but you could make the argument historically they're more right-wing. In fact, the JLA Avengers crossover from the mid-2000s is an interesting case of that, where they sort of explore how the DC heroes have more control over their world than the Marvel heroes do.
I find it hard to kind of pick between them. I think Marvel does characters a lot better than DC, but I just find I think it's largely just everything in Marvel is like political and pause. I guess is kind of my issue with it.
Well, certainly now. I mean, I am hard-pressed to recommend any Marvel comics that came out after 2012, 2013. These last few years when the SJW shit just ramped up, just kept cranking up to 1,000. I wouldn't say historically they've always been that way. And again, even what we call left has shifted much further left than it once was. I mean, there's a considerable difference between the liberals of 20, 30 years ago and the SJWs of today. But a couple of comic stuff I wanted to chat about a little bit. Luke actually made me think of this. Actually, you know what? Let me grab some notes. Undertow, why don't you bust into your 40K segment for the week?
Sorry. Just before that, I had one more point just on the whole Marvel dying. The social justice warriors also killed what had been my favorite video game company. They killed BioWare.
Oh yeah,
they raped it. I did a whole episode where I had Raging James Dodd, and we just talked about it for like 2 hours.
Have you seen some of the stuff for Mass Effect Andromeda they're putting out now?
I didn't even want to look at it because Mass Effect.
There's a shot in one of the new trailers where a character is literally the gun in their hand. The model is backwards, and the muzzle flash comes out.
Well, that's the thing. Social
I'm
justice
not even kidding. That is how low the bar has dropped for BioWare.
Social justice and talent can't exist in the same place. It just can't.
Because like when I did my top 10 favorite video games, I think Mass Effect 2 is like number 6 or something. I love the
I don't even like Mass Effect 2 that much. Pardon me, I'm really exhausted tonight. But Mass Effect 1 is one of my favorites for, or at least it used to be, because now I can't enjoy it anymore because I know what comes afterwards.
Mass Effect 3 is bad. Dragon Age 3 is so fucking. Dragon Age 3 is like Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. It's just such an overproduced, poorly conceived, unfinished turd.
All right, I'll be right back. I got to grab some notes. Undertow, like I said, you can start on your 40.
Go ahead. I just wanted to say RIP BioWare.
Yeah. Well, it's fine. I honestly don't really feel like talking that much this week, which is weird for me. But the basic gist I was going to get into was one of the factions of 40K, the main antagonist, if you will, for the Imperium of Man, if you want to consider them the quote-unquote heroes of the story. They're called the Forces of Chaos, and basically they serve the warp itself, and the realm of psychic phenomena and what your mind your mind makes it real and that kind of stuff. And they follow 4 dark gods. One of them, the first one and the most well-known, is called Khorne, Khorne, and he is the god of violence, honorable combat, blood, death, skulls. Generally, your traditional heavy metal album cover is going to be Khorne involved. His followers often become berserkers, and they run screaming into battle, yelling things like "Blood for the Blood God," "Skulls for the Skull Throne." The guy you're seeing right there, that is actually Abaddon. He is the leader of the Chaos Forces. At least he has been for many, many years in the real world. He's the character they've had as the leader. They call him Abaddon the Harmless or Abaddon the Armless, depending, because the model for Abaddon would constantly have the arms fall off on the table because it was a really thin connection point. And also, he has launched 13 so-called Black Crusades, which are giant attacks of all the chaos forces against the Imperium of Man. And they have pretty much failed every single time, which is baffling because we're told that they're supposed to be this horrifying, desolating force. That picture right there, that is an artist rendition of Khorne, the god of violence and blood. But anyway, the reason the Imperium is in such a ramshackle state is because in the year 30,000, half of the Space Marines betrayed the Empire and began serving the forces of chaos. And it's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the gist of it. Abaddon, that we just saw, he's the higher up Marine guy who's basically the toughest guy left standing, and he's in charge, even though he's clearly incompetent and hasn't really accomplished anything.
Is he Horus's successor?
He is Horus's successor. Yes, the event when half the Space Marines betrayed the others was referred to as the Horus Heresy because the leader that started that, his name was Horus. Now, when the Emperor was mortally wounded, it was by Horus's hand. However, the Emperor did manage to kill Horus before he became comatose or whatever, So Horus died. Abaddon was his second in command, and he basically led a hasty retreat for all the traitor legions into the Eye of Terror. Now, the Eye of Terror is a section of the galaxy that is where the warp is bleeding over into the material world. So for people that serve the ruinous powers, it's no big deal to hang out there. But for anybody who's, not completely insane, It's a bad place to be. The forces of chaos, they manifest based on the fears and the strong emotions of mortals, basically living sentient beings. And so, since humans are the most widespread things in the galaxy that have sentient thought, the horrors that tend to come out of the warp tend to resemble traditional, like, demons. There's Korn, for instance, has his bloodthirsters, which are very much your traditional, digitigrade, hoofed feet, red skin, big old horns, and they just come running out with a big sword. However, there are 3 other chaos gods. Korn is the one that everybody focuses on because, hey, it's a game about war, and this is the god who most strongly represents war. But there are 3 others. The next one I'd like to talk about is, let's go with Nurgle next. Nurgle, while Korn is the representation of violence and bloodshed and warfare and combat, Nurgle is the representation of decay and disease, sloth, despair, and hopelessness. And unlike some of the forces of chaos, he actually cares about his followers. However, his gifts that he gives to them are just more and more increasingly bad diseases. Now, if you are a follower of Nurgle, this isn't actually a bad thing, because when you become a follower of Nurgle, the pain of having a disease and like pus and disgusting things like that becomes quite soothing and comfortable. And it stops feeling like pain. And so the cultists and Chaos Marines that follow Nurgle are often described as disturbingly cheerful, even by the other Chaos people. They really freak them out because they're just standing there with their intestines hanging out of a gash in their stomach, and they're like, "Hey, what's up? You want to come to my beach barbecue? We've got extra I don't know. We've got extra strep throat on the hot dogs."
Yeah, I read the Chaos Gods also have like a positive side to them that we just don't see very much.
They sort of do, but it's the grim darkness of the far future. So it's not really. It's hit and miss. I'll go into that a little bit more once I get through the other 2. The next one I want to briefly mention is my personal favorite of the Chaos Gods, and that is Tzeentch. Tzeentch is often depicted as a big blue bird-like thing, or just a big blue weird guy, but it doesn't really matter what he's depicted as, because he is always changing, because he is referred to as the Lord of Change. His whole deal, or not a Lord of Change, because that's what one of his units on the field is called. Don't any of you nerds jump down my throat on that. But he's called the Changer of Ways and all that. And Tzeentch is all about scheming, manipulation, plans within plans within plans, and all for no purpose. Just convoluted scheming and turning people against each other, stabbing people in the back, just for the joy of it, just for the fun of it. He has no overarching plan guiding everything else. He's just kind of there to change things. He's the wild card. And his followers tend to be magic users and wizards, and they study the occult, and they're basically nerds even amongst the Chaos Marines. But he has this cool sort of blue and gold Egyptian theme going on with his dudes, and he's a lot of fun. Now, the last one is probably the least safe for work one, so be careful when you do this Google search. But the last one is called Slaanesh. Now, Slaanesh, nobody's really clear what sex he/she is. Because you see, Slaanesh is the embodiment of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. More generally, she, and I'll just say she because she's usually depicted as a woman, she is this god of excess, of doing everything way too much. And who better to represent the god of sex, drugs, and rock and roll than rock stars? The Chaos Marines that follow Slaanesh, they actually use augmented sound weaponry called sonic blasters. And they're these really cool like rifles with speakers at the end that just dubstep their enemies to death.
Do the Dark Elder worship Slaanesh?
No, they do not. And I'll touch on that next time. I think I'll do the Eldar. But no, the Dark Eldar do not worship Slaanesh. In fact, all of the Eldar are doomed to have their souls consumed by Slaanesh. Because, funny story, you remember how the last couple times, for the viewers, you remember how the last couple times I mentioned that the golden age of prosperity and everything in the galaxy, that suddenly came to an end when there was all these random warp storms out of nowhere? Mm-hmm. Well, that was Slaanesh being born. You see, Slaanesh didn't come into things until very recently, because the Eldar, the space elves, decided that they were going to be really, really bored and just become an entire race of hedonists and have the biggest orgy ever. And they literally murder-fucked a god into being and doomed the entire galaxy, because that one event is basically what has caused everything to become such a mess in the Warhammer 40k universe.
I thought all the Eldar were going to become the god of death.
That's a current thing. That's details. That's something that's just being pulled out of thin air for no reason in a book that came out a couple weeks ago, and I don't. It's what they're trying to do now is to try and all merge all the Eldar souls together so that they can make another god to fight Slaanesh or whatever. But for many, many years, the status quo has been that the Eldar were just simply trying to get away from Slaanesh. Now, the way they did this was, and I'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to the Eldar themselves, but basically they either have to isolate their souls in something called a soul stone, or they do things that cause excess, like pain or pleasure or excessive emotional feelings like that, in order to distract Slaanesh so that they don't wither up and die. That's basically the Dark Eldar. And then the quote,
do they have God?
What's that?
Do they worship gods?
They do. They have their own gods, actually. That's
really not just the chaos gods.
That's right. Yeah. In fact, all the races basically have their own gods. That's one of the things that's interesting about 40k is they all have their own societies and religions and stuff. Because most fantasy and sci-fi settings don't even bother to go into religious stuff. You know.
I just figured the Dark Eldar would just worship the chaos gods.
Yeah, and no, they don't. That's the whole point, is they're so afraid of them that they're feeding them in order to get away, to just be like, hey, don't look at me. Here, look at this juicy, delicious emotion that I'm getting by torturing this prisoner. Leave me alone.
Okay, I had another question, and this is something I've been thinking about for a while. How strong is the Emperor compared to the Chaos Gods?
Nobody knows. Because here's the thing. The Emperor, while he's been entombed on the Golden Throne, he's basically on life support, but his psychic power is emitting this ginormous light within the warp. And in fact, that is how all post-Horus Heresy starships actually navigate. They look for that big beacon of light in the warp because it's visible everywhere. And they use that to navigate through the warp through hyperspace so they can travel. It's called the Astronomicon. See, that was a big project that the Emperor was working on. The Golden Throne was not originally intended to be a life support device. That was like a backup function that it had. Its main function was to channel his psychic energy so that he could project this beacon so that navigation through the warp would be easier and safer. But yeah, anyway, the forces of chaos continually just lay waste to everything because they really just do not care. And,
sorry, just one more thing. I just wonder, because the Emperor must have an immense amount of power from being worshipped by the people. Mm-hmm. And don't they feed him like the souls of the most powerful people in the Imperium, like the strongest psychers.
Yeah, 10,000 a day, actually.
So I could see that being the end of the series. Well, they probably won't end it, but where the Emperor wakes up and he fights the Chaos Gods.
And that's basically kind of the end game sort of thing. But there are times where the Chaos Gods like complain that the Emperor had tricked them somehow, and they make passing mention to like he stole something from them. So it's kind of like maybe the Emperor became so powerful by actually stealing some of the power from the Chaos Gods. Which is another interesting.
Do we know where he came from or anything? Or
Anatolia.
He was just some Randy?
No. So there's various different things about the Emperor. So the official quote unquote explanation in the universe that like they tell people is that the Emperor was actually the result of 30 wise men in like 1200 AD or something. It's ancient history even for us currently. These people all got together and they performed a big ritual where they all killed themselves at the same time, and they were all psychers before people understood, oh, psychic powers are a thing. And because they did this ritual a certain way, they, instead of just dissipating back into the warp, they all reformed into one person. So basically, he's like 30 really powerful magicians put together, which is weird. But that's the official explanation. But there's also theories that like because of coming out of the dark age of technology, maybe he's some kind of experimental artificial being that was created for some purpose and now has gone rogue, or rather went rogue later. And that sort of thing. It's very interesting. There's a certain type of person in the 40K universe called a perpetual, and these people aren't just immortal in the sense that they don't age. They're immortal in the sense that if you kill them, they just reform somewhere else. And so it may be that those 30 quote unquote shaman wise men were actually just perpetuals that found some way to reform themselves into one being so that they would have the intellect of 30 people put together or whatever.
Do we know what happens to humans when they die?
Not really. No, that's the thing. It's weird because like the demons in the warp, they eat souls. That's right. How they sustain themselves. And basically the chaos quote unquote gods are just the biggest and the baddest of the chaos entities. That's why the Emperor was like, when he was going on his great crusade to recapture all of the colonized worlds, he had this policy of enforced atheism like a communist Russia, because he thought that if nobody believed in them, they would not be around anymore. They would just go poof. Basically, and that was his whole point in doing the Great Crusade, was to destroy the Chaos Gods because they were getting more and more powerful. But what he failed to realize was that they don't thrive so much on worship so much as they do on raw emotions. Like Korn and Nurgle have basically been around since the beginning of time, because as long as there's been living creatures, there's been violence and there's been sickness. Tzeentch came around much later once civilizations started popping up for the different races throughout the galaxy. And then, of course, Slaanesh was just when the Eldar got so bored. Yeah, that is literally the explanation. This is why, by the way, the human societies say don't ever talk to aliens, never consort with the Xenos scum. Because the only Xenos that the Emperor ran into when he was around were orcs, which are literally just violence incarnate. They're my favorite. And Eldar, who basically doomed the entire galaxy to destruction.
Were the Tyranids around back then?
They were not, no. And the Tyranids are something that I'll talk about later. But the Tyranids are basically, if you've ever played StarCraft, the Zerg are a ripoff of the Tyranids.
Yeah, so because I had heard there's speculation that there is like a human heaven that's like around the Emperor and the Warp.
Yes, that's a fan theory that people have put out, that the Emperor, not the reason he's so busy basically into, like, he's focusing all his power onto like creating a really big light in the warp. That okay, yeah, that maybe that takes a lot of power, but is it really so time focus intensive that he couldn't maybe heal part of his body or something so that he could come back and get people to get things back on track, because his empire is being horrible and, you know, torturing people and stuff. But people have suggested that perhaps the Emperor is like actually, while he's in this paralyzed state, going throughout the warp and rescuing as many souls as he can, because people are obviously constantly dying in a trillions and trillions of people in his galactic empire, and he feels like personally responsible for all of them. So
that's kind of the irony of the Emperor, was he enforced atheism, but he's kind of become a true god.
Yeah. And that's part of what makes the setting so interesting to me, is because things like that happen all the time. And like it's just very fascinating. But yeah, the Tyranids are scary. Very scary.
Are they the most powerful faction in
40, the Tyranids?
Like
pretty much. There's certain things you can do to disrupt them, but the Tyranids are in a universe where literally everything is completely overpowered, the Tyranids are the most OP. And that's what makes them so scary.
Now, with regard, sorry, I'm just working through some of this. So, is there a limited number of Chaos Space Marines?
No, and this is something very interesting. So, the original Chaos Space Marines, like the Black Legion and all that, they were there. Most of the Chaos Space Marines are still the same guys from the Horus Heresy era, because for Chaos Marines and other people who are sufficiently corrupted by the warp, when you get killed, they don't actually die. They just get teleported back into hyperspace hell, you know, and then they can come back. They can get better and come back out later. So for the most part, it is old guys, but there is a way to make new Chaos Space Marines. And it's probably the single most fucked up thing in all of fiction. And I don't even know where to begin describing this. So the Mechanicus that I mentioned for the Imperium of Man, the tech priests who worship technology, they have a dark counterpart in Chaos called the Dark Mechanicus. Very creative, I know, but they're nerds. Give them a cut of slack there. And the Dark Mechanicus have no problem with experimenting and creating their own. They're basically all mad scientists. And the way that they create new Chaos Space Marines, I'll give you the heavily censored version. They took some people, some slaves, and basically forcibly converted them into giant living vats that the unwilling, new Chaos Space Marine trainee would be shoved inside of. Then they would like gestate for a while.
So it's exactly, well, I mean, the series is kind of based on Dune, and that happens in Dune.
It's very much, yes, there's a lot of inspiration from
Dune.
It's
obviously like really much based on Dune. But yeah, that happens in Dune.
Yeah, it's a more gothic version of Dune with a lot more pop culture stuff thrown in. Yeah. But when the new Chaos Space Marines are reborn with their new crazy extra organs and amazing physiology, the one thing that the Dark Mechanicus couldn't get quite right was they're always born without skin. And so they have to stitch together like a quilt of skin. They suture onto them. And so all the post Horus Heresy Chaos Space Marines are horrifying, and they're not even that good at what they do, because they're basically just tortured people. Yeah, chaos be pretty whack, yo. But chaos itself, actually, the force of the warp can force its way into your mind, which is why the Imperium has this enforced dogmatic religion and has this super hardcore Inquisition and all this stuff. Because if you think the wrong thoughts, you may literally have your head explode and become a portal into hell.
I always like it when it's kind of sympathetic towards it, like in the Dragon Age games. The Templars are kind of vindicated because the mages could become, like you said, portals into hell and get possessed by demons.
Right. And so what's really interesting is when you read a lot of the stories about set in the 40K universe, the Inquisition are really, really reasonable people. That's what's so scary about it. Like, they are really kind and understanding, and they can't allow you to leave. You know, I'm sorry, but you know, your family is going to think that you died. You can like work. It's kind of like Men in Black in a lot of ways, because most people in the 40K universe, in the Imperium of Man, most people don't even know what chaos is, because it's been so suppressed that they just think that the rebels are just renegade space marines. They don't know anything about the warp. They don't know anything about anything, really. And only the characters that you hear about are the ones who actually know what's going on.
Well, it's probably for the best that they don't know about.
And that's exactly the point. Stuff. That's what's so scary about a lot of the stuff in 40K, and that's why it's such a dark setting. These peasants are being, you know, brutally mistreated and kept in the dark and everything, but it's genuinely for their own good. And that's the most horrifying thing.
Doesn't worshiping the Emperor protect your mind from chaos?
It actually does. That's what's really interesting. Like, part of the successors to the Emperor just deifying him was so that the people of the Imperium had something to focus their intense emotions upon. Because when they focus their intense emotions upon the Emperor, all of that emotional power goes to him instead of the chaos powers. So he's constantly getting more powerful. And in fact, there was I forget where this was mentioned, but recently it was mentioned in one of the books that, so for the most part, the 40K universe takes place, the time frame for all the tabletop stuff is the last 100 years of the 40,000 or the 39th millennium. So the year 40,000. You're like right about to turn the clock to 41,000. But according to a story that was put out a while ago, like 300 years prior, in about 40,700-ish, there was a massive wave of people all across the Imperium who had dreams and visions of the Emperor weeping in sorrow. So it's like he's like slowly getting more and more of his cognitive functions back, and he's seeing what his beautiful, sparkling, grand empire has become, this disgusting, grungy, gothic torture factory for people where they're worked to death, and that's the best possible outcome. And he's, you know, horrified by it.
Now, on Chaos, are Tau affected by chaos?
No, they're not. But I'll talk about the Tau later. This was more of a general look at chaos this week.
So are humans and Eldar the only species who are affected by them?
No, no. Actually, most sentient races are tied into the warp in some way.
Orcs sentient?
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah, man. They're the biggest and the strongest.
So are they affected by chaos?
Somewhat, but like I said, most of these races have something else to focus all of their attention on when they're experiencing all these emotions, and so it doesn't go into the warp directly. The orcs are kind of a special case where they, and I don't want to give too much away, but the orcs are actually an engineered species. And all of their psychic energy is actually shared amongst each other, which is why they're so devastating in crowds. And it doesn't go into the warp. The Tau, though, for reasons that we still don't know, are basically deaf to the warp. They don't have any psychers. They don't have any chaos corruption. Now they can still be killed by chaos really freaking easily, in fact, because they're only like 5 feet tall and they're really tiny and spindly, and that's why they use all their fancy schmancy Japanese laser guns. But yeah.
I kind of want to come on when you talk about the Tau, because I really like the Tau.
Oh, you dumb blueberry weeboo space communists.
No, they just are like, they're like one of the few kind of actually, like, I know everyone in Warhammer 40k is bad, but they seem nicer than
they seem nicer. That's what's so scary about the Tau, is that they seem nicer, but they're actually not. They're like an Orwellian dystopia where everything is monitored. It's scary.
Well, the thing about 40k is the totalitarian societies are substantially nicer than the rest of the galaxy.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, that's all I'm going to talk about this week.
All right. I want to cover our sponsor real quick, and then I'm going to ramble on about comics, and then we'll take some callers, I think. All right. So sponsor this week is Race Riot Apparel. And as I mentioned last week, he's very much upped his game from his original store. A lot more designs, a lot more graphics on it than he had before. So really do check those out. Great shirts on there. Y'all need Keck, Cal Exit. The days without what's the Donald Trump one there? The days without winning 0.
Yes.
Really good stuff there. Do check that out. And also down below you'll see the tip jar, where if you like this show, if you like what I do, tips are greatly appreciated. That helps me keep doing what I'm doing. Anything is appreciated, even $1. And obviously, it's also appreciated if you like, comment, and subscribe, because that helps this channel grow. So yeah, that's it for the sponsors. All right, so Luke showed me a picture earlier today that got me thinking about something interesting in comics. I wanted to ramble on here, and he showed me this picture of like a Spider-Man action figure where he's on a motorcycle, and he's all like, "Why would Spider-Man need a motorcycle?" Which obviously he doesn't. But it sort of brought up an interesting kind of chapter in Spider-Man's history. Spider-Man had a Spider-Mobile for a little while there.
What?
Yeah. This was really clever how they went ahead and did this. Let me bring up where I got I'm such a dork. I actually have an old Spider-Man encyclopedia from like 2004. So let me bring up the entry in here. Okay, so the Spider-Mobile's first appearance was Amazing Spider-Man 130. Basically, a couple of engineers had created this experimental engine which drastically reduced pollution, had great horsepower, all this bullshit. So they offered money to Spider-Man if he would promote it, right? Now the catch was he had to actually put it in a car. So he had his buddy the Human Torch from the Fantastic Four, who's a very accomplished mechanic. A lot of people don't know that about the character. He had him help him do this. And Human Torch, of course, being the kind of douche that he is, also threw in some high-tech shit he pilfered out of Reed Richards' lab in there, too. So this car was basically a dune buggy with this high-tech engine in it, and using some sort of tech he got out of Reed Richards' lab, it was actually able to drive up walls. So he's like, okay, so now you got this fat check from these guys because Spider-Man's always trying to pay rent, and he's like, okay, so I got my Spider-Mobile, and I think like it had a webbing gun and shit like that on it. But first of all, as soon as he got it, Peter Parker realized, like, I don't know how to drive. I live in New York. I've never had a driver's license, so he's not very good at it. And he has it for like a couple of missions. It's a massive hindrance. It does him no good. And at one point, Mysterio, doing Mysterio stuff, all this illusion stuff, manages to trick him into driving off a pier with it. And that was damn near the last we ever heard of the Spider-Mobile. Until a villain known as the Tinkerer, which is a very stupid name, managed to dig the car out of the river, and he put a fucking robot AI brain on it and programmed it to hunt down and kill Spider-Man. So the car resurfaces. The car resurfaces several issues later, with poor Spider-Man now getting hunted down by this monstrosity that was a terrible idea from the get-go.
I think I found the cover piece.
I actually see, this is actually why I love this is one of the things I've always loved about Spider-Man is I love the way it subverts that. You know, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna get my own version of Batmobile and it's gonna be terrible, and then it's gonna try and kill me.
I wonder what kind of drugs they were on when they came up with that idea.
I like the ideas of it because it's like it feels more human to me. It's like you try and do something that you get a big old check for, but it's kind of a bad idea, and then it just blows up in your face. I don't know of anywhere where you can find these issues reprinted. I read them online on some you could probably find ebook versions of them and all. A lot of comics are on Amazon Kindle now and shit. I know I read them on some sort of I think years ago I had the first 500 issues of Amazing Spider-Man on some sort of CD-ROM shit back in the mid 2000s. And I remember reading it that way, and they were fun issues. They're probably going to be pricey if you try and hunt them down. So I would try and hunt them down in some sort of ebook format if you want to read them. But they are rather amusing and worth reading. They're probably reprinted in some sort of trade. I just don't know which. But that was a fun little chapter in Spider-Man's history. Now, the comic I want to spotlight this week, and I'm probably going to do some, I say indie comics, but I mean, that makes it sound like it's so much less than it is. Just stuff that isn't Marvel and DC, that's superhero stuff. And the one I wanted to spotlight this week is something by Adam Warren. Dark Horse published it, called Empowered. Now, Empowered sounds, now this was mid 2000s. It started coming out 06 or something. It sounds a little bit more shit-libbed than it is when you read some of the descriptions of it. Basically, this chick, she has this superhero suit that gives her these powers. And the suit is not all that durable. And when it begins to rip, she starts to lose her powers. But it also regenerates. It just does it slowly. The exact nature of this suit is unknown. It's some manner of alien thing she's got. It's gotten somehow. And basically, she is a D-list superhero. And she's often the butt of other superhero jokes. She's routinely getting captured and needing to be rescued by other superheroes. And as it says on the back of the first volume, these are actually only available in volumes, in trade paperbacks. There were a few individual issue one-shots, which would eventually be reprinted in their own volume, but the main storyline is only available in volumes. I think it's up to volume 9 or 10 now. But as it says on the back of the box, let's see. Despite being one of the lamest superheroes around, she pluckily braves the ordeals of bottom-rung superheroic life with the help of her thugalicious boyfriend, a former witless minion to a villain, and her hard-drinking ninja best friend, not to mention the super-villainous advice from a caged alien demon lord watching DVDs from atop her coffee table. At one point in the first volume, somebody had like trapped her using this belt that manages to drain power. So basically, this ancient chaos demon lord shows up, and she manages to trap it in the belt. So the belt is just sitting on her coffee table with this monster like talking from it. And
are we sure this isn't an anime?
This is very much a Western thing. Adam Warren draws in an anime style, and I'm just talking about the concept. I'm not even looking at the screen. The actual, this is about halfway between an anime and a superhero comic book.
I just wanted to say I think I'm gonna head out now, guys.
Oh sure. Thanks for being on though.
Thanks for having me on. I had a lot of fun.
Certainly.
Feel free to come back anytime.
Okay, sure. I think I'll do that. Have a good night, everybody. Ciao.
Yep.
All right, bye.
So, like at one point, this thing is like trapped on the coffee table, and there's a scene where her and her boyfriend are kind of going at it in the bedroom, and I mean, you don't. It's PG-13 rated. You don't see anything, but you hear the demon lord from the next room in the little belt screaming at him like, You will not let the immortal demon goat watch your filthy animal coupling. And they're like, and he's like sniveling prudes. Like the thing is done. The book is done mostly for laughs, obviously, but it's also got a tremendous amount of heart. It's got really interesting characters in it. There are some downright emotional moments in the series. I know a lot of my audience is heavy into anime, and if you're and manga and all those goop tunes. But this is a good little branch between Western superhero storytelling and anime, because it does borrow heavily from anime. Adam Warren actually did the American Dirty Girl or Dirty Pair comics, I think it was. Dirty Pair. He did the English language version of it. And he's done a little bit of stuff in mainstream stuff, like he's done an Iron Man series. He's worked on Gen 13 over at Image Comics. But primarily, he has not done a lot of superhero stuff, but this is his thing, and it's really, really good. I adore Empowered. It's one of my favorite superhero things, period, and it's definitely one of my favorite superhero things. It's not Marvel or DC. The book's got a lot of heart. It's at times very sexy. It's at times very funny, without being trashy. It's it's really just all around great. I highly recommend picking up, at least giving Empowered Volume 1 a shot. I mean, brand new, it's $14.95 for this big old thick volume. I'm sure you can find it way cheaper than that on Amazon. But I highly recommend Empowered, like thoroughly. In fact, the next few weeks, I'm going to spotlight a few other indie superhero stuff that I really think is great. Godland and Invincible are a couple others at Image that have just been fantastic. But I highly recommend Empowered. Not just for superhero fans, but just in general. You'll really get a kick out of it. I realized that the name combined with a female superhero, you might think you're dealing with a lot of fucking, pause. You might think you're dealing with a lot of SJW shit, that kind of stuff. It's really not there. I mean, I think like there's a gay character here or there, some shit like that. You know what I mean? But primarily, no. That crap's not there. This is just good storytelling. I thoroughly enjoyed, especially the early volumes. So, yeah. Let's see. What else did I want to cover this week? Before we get to callers. I guess the Vault 7 stuff. But I don't really have a lot to add on that. I mean, I find myself not even knowing what to say to that. Especially not knowing what to say to anybody still defending this shit. I mean, basically, to sum up Vault 7, the entire intelligence community needs to be executed. That's what Vault 7's all about. If you're wondering, like, you know, teams of SEALs and Rangers and stuff need to just converge on Langley. No survivors.
I mean, like, well, maybe not say that, maybe because you know, of who might be listening.
I'm sure. Fuck them. I don't care. I've made my peace with God. But
maybe the two other people haven't. Maybe you're dooming two innocent people to die horrible deaths.
You've both made your peace with God too. You're fine.
Amen.
Speak for yourselves.
But no, seriously.
He's the youngster amongst us.
Seriously, though. It's hideous. The CIA needs to be abolished. No joking here.
You might say it needs to be shattered into 1,000 pieces and scattered into the winds.
Yeah, it needs to be burnt and the ashes buried in the four corners of the world.
Well, do you recognize what I was referencing there?
Off the top of my head, no.
John F. Kennedy once said, "I will shatter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the winds."
Well, yeah, we saw what happened to him.
The key code that decrypted Vault 7 was all one word: shatter it into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the winds.
Here's the thing, like, look, and we don't need the CIA, even if you don't think they were doing great. Look, all four branches of the military have their own intelligence services, and we have the FBI for domestic crime. The CIA does not need to exist. There is no actual real justification for their existence. And they are a remarkably evil institution. They are the closest thing to Hydra that exists in the real fucking world. And yeah, there's no innocent people at the CIA. There's only degrees of guilt. Even the janitor needs kicked in the balls.
The fact that not only they created these tools to go make backdoors into people's devices, but they just lost track of them. People at the NSA can just walk right out the building with them, and now they're just out there. You know?
Well, I've said all through the Obama years that what was primarily a blessing, and this is one case where it wasn't, was that, yes, these people were incredibly evil, but they were also incredibly stupid. With Obama, we could have gotten Darth Vader, and instead we got Dark Helmet from Spaceballs, and we should all praise Jesus in heaven for that. That was truly God's mercy upon us. And I mean, just look at Obamacare. Margaret Thatcher famously said socialism works great until you run out of other people's money. Well, somehow Obama managed to fuck up the giving out free shit part of socialism. That's how bad he is at this. But I think with Trump and just the massive exposure of it all, I think we have a real chance to deal with this problem finally. John F. Kennedy tried to deal with the CIA at a time when, there were 3 networks on TV, all of which were in that organization's pocket. Yes, all the major networks are in that organization's pocket, but nobody fucking watches them anymore. Okay? I watch CNN sometimes when I'm eating at the Subway near my work. All right? That's when I watch CNN. Which I don't even do now because I actually gave up going out to eat for lunch at work for Lent. Which is
they call it Lent because you run out of money and then you reach in your pocket and there's only pocket Lent. You have to give something up until you can save up enough money.
It actually has shown me that I piss away way too much money going out to eat. But yeah, I don't have a lot to say about Vault 7. I'm hardly a tech expert. All right. So some of this shit goes over my head, but I know a little something about human nature, and I know when somebody's trying to fuck me. Yeah, trust me, Putin may be kind of a shitbag, but I'll side with him over the monsters at the CIA any day. All right, so what else did I want?
Time to get our hands on those sweet, sweet rubles. Is your check cleared yet, by the way?
Exactly. I haven't got my rubles. I saw Logan today. I'm kind of sad Argent left because he actually didn't like it. I liked it. But I don't want to talk too much about that this week. But one of the things I really liked is thank God for Deadpool. Deadpool showed Hollywood that it's okay to do an R-rated superhero movie. You're still going to make money. It's okay. It's okay. Because the reality is there are even like lighter superheroes like Superman or Spider-Man. There are stories in those books that if told faithfully on the big screen would be an R rating for just violence alone. I mean, when you think about, enhanced beings, well, guess what? That means enhanced violence. And you see a lot of that in Logan. Like he is saving a bunch of kids that were, all test tube baby mutants grown in a lab, X-23 among them. But there's a scene towards the end where like the bad guys, the government, the pseudo government, the CIA basically. We're just talking about that. They're storming in on these kids, all these hired guns. These kids, now they end up getting captured, but they fuck some of these guys up, something fierce. Like there's this guy's got this kid pinned against a tree, right? And this kid has ice power, so he breathes out on the guy's arm and freezes his arm and then shatters it.
Oh.
There's this one kid who's got like telekinetics and they're running through like a woods with like, pine trees everywhere. He kills these guys by just making like 10,000 fucking pine needles stab them.
Oh, jeez.
Like just a fucking windstorm of pine needles all up in there. Like these guys died some horrible fucking deaths. And that's not even the slicing and dicing that Wolverine and his little girl clone there do. There's some brutal shit going on in this movie. As well there should be, because the story demands it. And we don't shy away from it, nor necessarily should we. Yeah, I liked Logan a lot. It definitely had its flaws, but all in all, I would say it's up there with, like, say, X-Men 2 or our First Class, as far as solid X-Men movies, of which there's not a lot of. The X-Men movies have not been very good, if we're being honest here.
So is this the last time we're getting this kind of Wolverine?
This is, as of right now, Hugh Jackman is saying this is the last time he is doing the character. Now, Ryan Reynolds is desperately trying to get him to appear in a Deadpool movie with him. So we'll see if and when that goes anywhere. But as of right now, Hugh Jackman is done. And I mean, he's done the character for 17 years now. I mean, a lot of actors do these kind of movies and then they move on because they think they're better than it or something like that. You know what I mean? But Hugh Jackman he's done his time. You can't say he's just, he actually, there were stories on set of the first X-Men movie where, like, the director didn't want anyone looking at source material because back then nobody making these movies respected source material. But Hugh Jackman was having none of that. He said, I'm going to play Wolverine. I'm going to fucking learn Wolverine. So he bought a shit ton of X-Men and Wolverine comics. He just went to a comic book store, a few $100. And remember, this was 2000. We were all still suffering from the crash. Right? Back issues were at some of their lowest prices they've ever been. So I'm sure he got through a dollar bin of it or something with $100 bill. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, he's in his fucking trailer just consuming Wolverine comics. And he's fucking rambling on to people on set about, like, Wolverine factoids. Like, did you know he's actually got bone claws? Like, they put the adamantium over the claws, but they didn't, like, make it in the lab. Like, he's just rambling on about that shit. But he loved doing the character. He loved it for the longest time. But Hugh Jackman's not the young pup he was a few years ago. I mean, he's certainly not an old man yet, like in this movie, but he's not a kid anymore either. So, and also, if you have not read Old Man Logan, and again, you're interested in comic books, this is a alternate future kind of story where supervillains had taken over the world or the U.S. and divided up amongst themselves, and Wolverine is trying to raise a family and is a pacifist. This movie is somewhat inspired by that. It's not based on that by any stretch because they couldn't. There's so many regular Marvel Universe elements in it. But definitely you should read Old Man Logan. And I'll spoil one small element of it. When we finally find out what it was that caused Wolverine to just break and become a pacifist, when the villains all got their shit together and decided to really work together and just en masse all at once attack the heroes, the way they dealt with the X-Men is they sent Mysterio in there, and he tricked Wolverine into thinking it basically tricked Wolverine into killing most of the X-Men. Because, he made Wolverine believe they were all villains coming at him. And so Wolverine murdered most of his friends and family in the X-Men. And that's why, he decided he would never, pop his claws again. And the villains, actually, part of their plan was, it's pretty damn hard to kill Wolverine. So instead, we decided to break him.
Yep. That'll do it.
But yeah, Old Man Logan is a pretty damn good read. Definitely worth checking out. And I mean, I think the trade paperback would cost you like $30 because it's a bunch of issues. But you can go on Amazon, you'd probably find it cheaper than that. All right. So let's go ahead and take calls. I'll bring in some callers, and then who was first? Who did I say was first? Okay. And go ahead and message me on the Skypes there, as Christopher Cantwell likes to say, at the Bechtloff. Looks like just below is our first caller. I have no idea what's on his mind, but we'll find out. But yeah, I really liked Logan. I think it's worth checking out. Also, Wolverine is actually dying in it. He's gotten old enough to where his healing factor has slowed down significantly, and while it's still there and much more than a normal person, he's actually now dying from metal poisoning from the adamantium on his skeleton, which before his healing factor just kept completely at bay and never bothered him, but it's slowed down enough that he's now getting poisoned by it, which is further slowing down his healing factor. So he's sort of in this kind of downward spiral, as it were. And we lost Luke again. All right.
Just like heroin addiction.
Yep. Lead the revolution. What's on your mind?
I've been making notes throughout this entire thing, and I was planning on going through all of them. First off, I wanted to say to Undertow, you got one detail wrong in your little explanation.
Did I?
It was during the end of the Golden Age wasn't when Slanesh died. Slanesh died, and then that caused the end of the Eldar Golden Age, and then the Human Golden Age came, and what caused the end of that was, well, there wasn't a lot of conflict, and there was more medical technology and all these other things. So all the other three were getting weaker and weaker, and then Tzeentch was getting more and more powerful because everything was continuing to get better and better. It's funny because Tzeentch gets more powerful as there's prosperity. So they all teamed up, and
Tzeentch is scheming and everything. He's also technically the god of hope, like ambitious hope. It's more like negative ambition. Yeah, I did get that wrong. I was completely mistaken about the timeline. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and then they all teamed up on Tzeentch, tore him apart, and then since he's the god of magic, that caused all the warp storms and the end of the Golden Age of humanity.
Ah, okay. Well, that makes a little sense.
Yeah. I found get this, a sci-fi movie that's actually sci-fi and was made in America.
What?
Yes. It popped up on Netflix. I can't find it at the moment. I hope it's still there, but it's called Kill Command.
I've heard of it.
It is fantastic. Do you mind if I talk about it?
Not at all.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so there's probably gonna be a lot of spoilers in here. So if anybody doesn't want it, they could probably duck out for a little while. But in the movie, you got these soldiers who are called in to do this training exercise on the island. It's like 50 years or so in the future, so it's like mid-future tech, where all the video games pretend to be. But they actually threw in 2 elements that were actually futuristic shit. First off, you had the cybernetics thing, but it was a point in cybernetics debate that people don't ever go to, where the chick was she was born with this mental disease that was eating away her brain. She eventually would have been paralyzed and then or just rotted away. But one of these arms companies came, and apparently they do this with a lot of people, where they just replaced a large portion of her brain with a cybernetic core. So the majority of her brain is a computer, and you got this whole dynamic because she's a civilian on the mission with the soldiers. And some of the soldiers treat her like she's a machine, and the other, and like there's this one guy in particular that treats her like a person. So you have that whole dilemma of, okay, how much of your brain can you replace before you're no longer human? That's not even
the shell.
Yeah. See, that's a side plot though. The main plot revolves around a very popular topic that's been going around, AI, because they went to this training ground where this machine had been, her company had been developing these robots that learn. They're AI, but it's not like HAL AI. This is like the actual problems with AI, because they trained it to learn from combat scenarios and get better. But you see, it ran out that the obstacles the humans were giving it were not enough. It wasn't learning at what it thought it should learn at. So then it just turned on them. But then it hacked into the Pentagon's whole system and basically set up this whole training exercise to lure what it thought was the best team to learn from them.
Cool.
It's actual sci-fi. It was amazing. We went into it thinking it was not going to be that great, but it was. Another note here. Oh, another story you guys might have missed. Did you guys see Malik Obama's legendary tweet?
Which one would that be? They're all legendary from him.
I was gonna say.
Obama's birth certificate from Kenya.
Oh my God! Wait, what?
Wait, really?
He's claiming that's what it is, and so far I haven't seen anybody be able to rip it apart digitally at the like the last one that was from Hawaii. The one that totally wasn't a fraud.
I'm looking at it right now. Certificate of birth, Coast Providence Hospital, Kenya, Barack Obama. I mean, this is just a scan he put on Twitter, but if I'm being honest with you, Malik doesn't really seem like the kind of guy to, forge a document and put it on Twitter.
Wow.
I know. This is great. I hope it turns out to be real, but even if it doesn't, this would be the master troll.
And it could just turn out the entirety of his 8 years was illegal. Wow.
What would that even mean for the country?
Well, it'd mean that we brought it on ourselves, for one thing. It would definitely shut people up. Like, these birthers are such evil conspiracy theorists. Oh my God, that really does look real.
Yeah, it does.
And you know what? I'm not going to be called a conspiracy theorist by people who think that, the Russians are hacking fucking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't keep not getting these Russian checks he talks about. Keep talking about.
The Russians hacked voting machines that weren't even hooked up to the internet.
Yeah.
Well, if they were hooked up to the internet, it was only because the CIA put the fucking back doors in there. Now, wouldn't it be? I mean, they intercept laptop. It was even it was the Snowden ones where they intercept laptops and put fucking Wi-Fi chips in them, even though for people who don't intend to ever hook them up to the internet.
That is interesting.
Yeah, it's funny how all just more and more every year. Alex Jones is the one that's been saying this entire time, and we're all just living in a fucking dream world. Which is the scary part. Oh God, I hope David Icke isn't right about anything. That would be terrifying.
Oh.
But they're lizards. I would rather that be
that's him.
true.
You would rather? It would make a lot more sense now, wouldn't it?
Yeah, like I'm able to process that more.
Yeah, because they don't understand how people work.
Then actual people chose to be this way.
It's certainly a lot more pleasant than the world that Davis Arini points out, which is probably the most accurate picture we have at this point.
Yeah, I'm hoping for the lizard man thing to be true at this point. That they're just extraterrestrial fucking lizard monsters that are trying to enslave us. Like yes, let that be true.
Okay, the last topic I had to bring up was from really early on in the show. It has to do with Stefan Molyneux's one of his latest videos, The Rise of the Daycare Generation.
Oh, that was brilliant.
I haven't seen that one yet. I've been meaning to, though. I like Stefan's vids.
Well, basically, he points out that all these special snowflakes and conniption fists that we're seeing from the left, you could basically point out to the fact that they had no parental connection.
Yeah. This actually, you remember that saying for them, I forget what part of the Bible it's from, spare the rod, spoil the child?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Stefan Molyneux's interpretation of that is that the rod is the majority of the Bible has to do with shepherding and husbandry rather than, there's few military things in there and such, but it's usually from a herder's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of it, but I mean, every once in a while, the shepherd swatted the sheep with that rod.
Well,
and I've said multiple times to people that I know that the vast majority of the problems in the world today can be attributed to bad parenting.
Oh yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't believe. I don't take the position Stefan or Cantwell does on spanking. I don't believe spanking is that good of a. Let me put it that way: if the kid's older than like 3 or 4 and you have to spank them, like things are already off the fucking rails. I mean,
okay, well, you're a little wrong.
No, because look, to me, it seems like the best way to deal with a kid once they're, I want to say like 5 or 6, is you take away their shit. All right, like you're the parent. Everything that kid loves is because you allow him to have it. And these days with fucking all the electronics and shit, like when I was a kid, if I pissed my dad off, he sent me to my room and he had one of those fucking power boxes and all where he could shut off the power to individual rooms. All right, so he sent me to my room with just fucking nothing. All right, no lights. No, there was like I had like hand-me-down electronics. Every time he got a new piece of electronics, I got, like I had a fucking VCR. I mean, the fucking fast forward button didn't work and there was no remote or nothing because it was busted. But whatever, I had a VCR. I was happy. But point is, like, none of that shit was gone. All right.
The thing is, Chris,
I think that's how you
with the spanking. With the spanking, that's instantaneous. That's instinctual, and it's after a certain point. After a certain point, it's more about shame.
I think that works better with younger kids.
Well, I mean, in the research that's been done on the whole thing, it actually causes more defiance in the child as it's a form of attention, and they don't register it as they don't listen to what you say. They look at what you do, and you're striking them and claim to love them at the same time, which creates.
I don't buy the arguments against spanking in general. Like I said, I think spanking is more honest to God, like
worked for thousands of years, damn it.
And I didn't realize what Stefan was talking about in regards to spanking, because my parents spanked me, and I was like, well, where's all this defiance? I had no defiance in my parents. And then I found out some people spank their kids like every other day of the week. Like, well, no wonder you're messing up your kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I think spanking, I think it's like a last resort thing, is what I'm saying. I think things are a bit more off the rails than they need to be. If a kid is like 6 or 7 and you have to fucking spank them, okay?
Well, this is the whole issues in the video wasn't even close to the whole spanking topic. The reason I brought up that topic was to use the shepherd's rod as an example of guidance rather than of punishment.
Sure. You
have to guide your children, or else they'll become spoiled. Well. Mm-hmm. Most of the video was centered around the fact that these kids have their parents just, it's the Aaron Clary. You had your kids and then you just threw them to the state to be raised by everybody else. You didn't raise them yourself. That was the primary problem. These people were effectively neglected as kids, even though they were. And you talked about how it was disproportionately the daycare epidemic affected the higher level people, the higher income brackets more than the lower income brackets, which is where you get this whole thing where all these rich and middle class people are suddenly all communists that were because they were raised by the state. And part of it's just rebelling against their parents. And I mean, at a deeper psychological level, Mr. Peterson might say that they're rebelling against what they perceive took their parents away from them.
Yeah.
It's the system that ripped their mothers away from them and told them, you got to go earn, you got to go girl, earn a living. But they don't rebel against feminism. They rebel against capitalism.
Yep.
Yeah, there's one other point that Stefan was pointing out, that it's not so much that there's the parents are actually there, but about consistent caregiving, that there's someone actually there consistently, actually being there and caring about you.
Yeah, they just go to different person. It's like being orphaned 5 times while you're growing up, psychologically speaking.
Yeah.
Picture you're an orphan. Your parents, whatever family you go to, they just die. Like there's a vampire after you, just wanting to torment you or something.
Yeah.
Then that's where the SJWs come from.
The thing is that they're taught that capitalism is a system, for one thing. Capitalism isn't like, it's not like John Locke sat down and said, this is the capitalist manifesto like Marx did. Capitalism is just a description of how things work when people interact with money,
Yes, capitalism is just, that's exactly true. Capitalism is just how things fucking work. And if you rebel against it, you rebel against reality.
And that is why you see them rebelling against reality. Because what are they doing when they say that sex doesn't exist? It's just all social constructs. It's they must deny reality.
Yep. And just the whole acknowledging sex, that's just an invitation for conflict. And I mean, who wants conflict, right?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
We all just want to be.
I'd much rather be a. You know what? The real dream, of course, is to be a plant, to not do anything ever, and to just sit there and absorb your allotment of nutrients and only what you need, nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, see, to us, the Matrix is a dystopian, terrifying dystopian future. It's not. For them, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, this reminds me of a Steven Universe episode. Apparently, in their universe, yes, apparently, there were these in the Steven Universe. There were aliens going to destroy the Earth and make it into like a mine colony. But the one person decided to save some humans and put them in the zoo environment. And the zoo environment is a microphone next to their ear, telling them what to do every second of every minute of the day.
Jeez.
And they don't know what pain is. And so when these two people from Earth who come there, like there's actually a ceremony called the choosing where they put pairs together. And so one of them gets paired up with the normal person and says, no, I want to choose whoever I don't want to choose. And everyone wants to choose now, but they says, but no, being able to choose means I don't get to choose any of you. I'm like, what? You don't want any of us? No, I'm hurting.
What?
And they all fall apart. They all start crying and falling apart, and to the point where the guards had to go in and comfort them. No one's ever going to choose me again. Oh no, that's not true. You'll be fine.
All right. Anything else on your mind then, bud?
Oh, what? Oh, sorry. I thought I heard coyotes.
Coyote. Okay.
I mean, they've been menacing our animals for like a year now, and I've been trying to shoot one of them, but they just keep running away.
What a shame.
I know. The worst thing ever, survivors. Well, I just have to say, hail Stickman, and see you guys later. Oh, can I come back in the after show time?
I'm going to be leaving. I'm going to bed soon.
Yeah, I'm probably going to bed right after the show. So there's really not going to be any after show time.
Okay, then see you guys later.
Yeah, someone's got church in the morning, you heathen.
Have sleep in the morning, you saints.
Well, sometimes I do go to the church of, St. Mattress.
That doesn't count.
It's a lovely service.
See you later, man.
Yeah, well, Luke, it is a day of rest. I'm just saying, like,
That's today.
My personal thought is that church should not be in the morning. It should be at like 1 in the afternoon.
Nothing should be in the morning.
You're preaching to the choir right there. If it were up to me, I'd never get up in an hour that ended in AM again.
Or up to me, I'd never get up again at all.
Unfortunately, I have adult responsibilities. Like my day job, I got to get up at 8 for it, which for a first shift is pretty late. I'm lucky there, and that's because most of my adult life I work second or third shift, usually second. So when you work at second shift, that's usually like a 3 to 11 or a 4 to 12 p.m. kind of thing. You sleep till you're done sleeping. Like you don't have an alarm clock when you're on second shift. It's so great. Maybe you get up a little early to run errands beforehand, but usually you could, you're not going to sleep past 11 or 12. So usually you got a couple of hours at least before work that you could run errands or something. Second shift was great. I actually really miss it, but the current job I'm at has me at a first shift, but it's a 9 to 5:30 type thing. So I don't have to get up till 8, which is for first shift nice, because I could go to bed around 11 or 12 and still get a good night's sleep. But when I first started on there, they had me working fucking 6:30, and I hated that so much. Every time that alarm clock went off, I was like, just take me home now, Jesus. And I love my job. I really do. I love my day job. But when I had those earlier hours, every time that alarm clock went off, I was just like, do I really need this job? Yeah, I do. When you want to call off just to go back to bed, like you're not even sick. You're just like, just once I want to go back to bed. Well, no, right now the hours are pretty good. Waiting on a caller here. Trying to fill up dead air. Oh, something kind of interesting I saw. There's that live action Beauty and the Beast out, right?
Oh boy, here we go.
And they turn one of the characters into a faggot. Now,
which one?
Who cares?
It's one of the humans that like hung out with Gusto, I think was his name. It's been so long since I've seen Beauty and the Beast.
Seriously?
But they turned him into a faggot.
Yeah, it's probably the goofy, funny guy that was like his right hand.
And it's funny because in the original animated movie, he's like drooling over hot chicks like the whole fucking movie. But, okay, well, he's a faggot in this movie. Now, the leftist defense of this has been, well, the movie's about bestiality, and you're upset about a faggot. Like, leftists can't think in anything other than superficial terms. Like, see, he had
clearly it's about the furry fandom.
Clearly, he had a magic spell where he looked kind of ugly. He looked like, so clearly this movie's about a woman fucking a buffalo, right? No, it's really not, okay? Like, first of all, it's fictional. But second of all, if Bella fucked the Beast when he's in his fucking buffalo form, that's not the same as Whitney, Wisconsin, okay? I'm sorry to tell you that.
Yeah, that affects people.
It might be kind of gross. Like, he probably doesn't smell that good in that form. But it's not bestiality because he is, in fact, a human being.
Yeah, he passes the Harkness test.
By the way, this gay character in the live-action movie, I thought that was Jack Black at first.
Yeah,
I did too. Yeah, I was like, is that Jack Black? He's really gaying it up. But yeah, I just want to get that little rant out there because it's like, that's such a stupid defense. Well, she fucked a guy that's kind of hairy. I mean, that's basically what they're saying.
There was no sex in
He's
that
a human
story.
being. Well, leftists can't also distinguish between romance and sex.
Yeah.
Any sort of courtship is automatically fucking.
These people are taking too many notes from Nia Sarkeesian. You have to actually have context to your information.
I mean, that'd be like saying like Mary Jane and Spider-Man is bestiality.
Yeah, she's got spider in it.
He has spider powers. No, he is a human being.
as far as we know. He could be the embodiment of bad luck.
Liam, what's on your mind? Going once, going twice. Liam, we've lost Liam.
Rip.
Let's press F. I think my mic is fucked up. Hang on. Oh man, you're killing me. You know, you're lucky you're not on Cantwell's show. He throws motherfuckers off in like a second if their audio's even kind of bad. All right, he's kind of a dick. Now I realize he's trying to keep a more fast-paced show than I do. You know, he actually has like a tight 2-hour schedule where I'm on here till I don't feel like being on here anymore.
Oh, apparently the guy who's playing Olaf is the same guy who played. Oh wait, no, the guy who's playing LeFou in this is the guy who played the snowman in Frozen.
Oh, now I recognize him. What is that character then? The one we were thinking it was, huh?
I guess not. I don't.
No, it is.
Oh, it is? Okay.
His name is LeFou, right?
Yeah, LeFou, that's the guy.
It has been ages since I've seen that movie.
Yeah, there he is.
Is that French for anything, LeFou?
I think it's for the fool.
Of course.
Let's see. Oh crap! I hit a wrong button on Skype. Sorry if I was calling you there. Somebody messaged me on Skype, said they wanted me to send you a picture. I'm just telling them to send it right to you, Luke. Dead air. Up, we've completely lost our guest. All right, we're gonna move on to the next guest then, because this is just too much dead air. Let's see. Who is okay? Liam, I'll try and get you on after. Oh, here he is. Is your mic okay? Going once, going twice. All right, I'm moving on to the next caller.
How embarrassing.
I'm sure it happens to a lot of guys. It's okay, Liam. A little performance anxiety there for your mic. All right, I'm bringing the next caller in, and then if Liam fixes his mic, he can hop back in afterwards. God, the guy really does look like Jack Black. I wonder what that actor's name is.
Oh, it's Josh Gad.
Yeah. Poor guy. He probably signed on like, yeah, I'm going to be at Beauty and the Beast. And then when he got here.
No, he's a gay guy. Probably why he's gay.
Beauty and the Beast is why he's gay.
No, I mean why the character is gay is because this actually is gay.
Okay. See, I want to imagine the best in people. So like I want to imagine he was like, yeah, I'm going to be in a Beauty and the Beast movie. And he shows up and they're like, you have to be a faggot now. And he's like, oh.
No, he's a Broadway actor, and he's like, "Oh, that's great."
He does have gay face, I'll give you that. But I was giving him benefit of the doubt that he was a good actor. Bones, what's on your mind?
Oh, can you hear me?
Hey.
Yeah, we can hear
awesome.
you. We can hear you, Bones.
All right, I just want to get into comics a little bit and talk about, because DC's been such a shit show recently, how they screwed up two of the characters really liked from Batman. I used to read Batman when Tim Drake became the third Robin, and there were two other female characters that were kind of interesting that, were also the newer characters running around with him, Cassandra Cain and Stephanie Brown.
Yeah, those characters were pretty prominent right before the New 52 reboot. Stephanie Brown was actually Batgirl, and I liked her run as Batgirl. I liked that series.
Then you've probably talked to her a little more than I can, because I read the first few issues, but then I kind of dropped the ball. They were very good, but
it's been a while since I read it, but I remember it being very. I don't want to say like uber lighthearted, but just really just good old fashioned superhero stuff. Like
she was very fun, which is a very nice thing to have in comics.
There was one story where she teams up with Supergirl and some sort of like alien like AI piece of technology or something caused like some old movie monsters to come to life from a like a black and white movie. Like this alien like piece of tech was actually projecting them into like energy constructs, so they're fighting these old black and white like Dracula and Frankenstein looking monsters. Like they looked as close to old Universal monsters as DC could get away with. And it was just such a goofy fucking superhero story where it's like, yeah, a monster came to life out of the movie and now we gotta go kick its ass.
Like these are representations of monsters that are not legally close to things you may or may not have seen in the movies 50 years ago.
These Universal monsters.
Yeah. Please don't sue us.
Yeah.
That's cool. But yeah, so I think the reason her Batgirl series ended was actually because of the New 52. I think it was doing really well. Her and Red Robin and
as I said, the New 52 was the worst thing that happened to DC in ages. DC Comics creatively I don't believe was ever better than right before the reboot.
No, everything was great. I think you've said it before. The two things that got screwed up the least because they kept most of the continuity, although that's kind of arguable, is the Green Lantern series, because they kept all the color lanterns, which we were talking about a few weeks ago, and for the most part, Batman kept a lot of his supporting characters, but these two got wiped.
They could never keep track of what they kept either. That was the other thing.
Yeah, that was very annoying.
Nobody knew what still counted. In the earliest issues of New 52, the death of Superman is referenced. Crisis on Infinite Earths is referenced. Tim Drake being Robin is referenced when we would later come to find out he would only ever been Red Robin, apparently. Tons of things get referenced that apparently didn't really count.
I always think Green Lantern, Hal Jordan's the greatest superhero in the Marvel universe, or not Marvel, sorry, DC universe now, because in the matter of like 1 or 2 years, he had saved the galaxy 3 or 4 times, led the army of Green Lanterns against Sinestro and Black Hand and all this other crap, and Superman's been like fighting Lex Luthor for 6 months.
Taking a timeline that was roughly 10 to 15 years and already pretty crowded and quote unquote condensing it down to 5 years for Green Lantern and Batman makes things fucking bananas. Like my joke that like what the hell, Jason Todd's time as Robin was like he left the cage and was immediately beaten to death by the Joker. Like on his first night as Robin. Like the Joker didn't even waste time. He just drove by and threw a crowbar at his head.
Actually, I'll segue from what I was actually going to talk about first, and wanted to know what you think about this theory, because Marvel has a lot better continuity, and the way I keep track of time in the Marvel universe is actually by the age of Mr. Fantastic's and the Invisible Woman's son, because I think she got pregnant with him in like issue 2, and he was born in like issue 3 of Fantastic Four.
No, it wasn't. It was considerably later than that, but it was still in what we would count as the Silver Age. It was in the 60s. It just was late 60s, I believe. But yes, and see, that's a problem with introducing young kids into it, is you can be much more fuzzy with the timeline when you're dealing with adults.
Yeah.
Because kids grow like fucking weeds, obviously. Adults, I mean, there's not a tremendous amount of difference between you at the age of 29 and the age of 30. Whereas there's a tremendous amount of difference between you at the age of 9 and 10, But yeah, the Marvel universe has basically been, they're going to say about a solid 15 years since Fantastic Four #1. And more or less everything since Fantastic Four #1 counts. There's some fuzzy continuity problems, particularly when you're dealing with real world events. But more or less that counts. It's much more fuzzy when you get into Golden Age Marvel, but a lot of it counts. And basically all those characters did indeed exist in the Golden Age of Marvel. Like Marvel Comics #1 is actually the first comic they published in '39. It was called like Atlas or Timely or some shit back then. I think Atlas. No, because Timely was DC. Yeah, Atlas. And Marvel Comics #1 is the premiere of the Submariner, Namor, and the original Human Torch, the Golden Age Human Torch. Actually, a pretty decent read for a Golden Age comic. I've read reprints of it. But yeah, Marvel's continuity is much more solid. In recent years, it's frayed than DC's. DC's has so many reboots out the ass that, as I've said before, that just makes things more complicated. I mean, I would need to be on camera and have a big old dry erase board behind me to fucking explain Hawkman's continuity to you. All right. Like you see that meme?
You have to go with the timelines and which part of which timeline feeds into the current timeline.
Yeah, it's like you see that meme of the guy from like Always. There's that guy from Always Sunny in Philadelphia where he's got like the newspaper articles and the like little like the little pins with like strings attached.
Oh yeah, like conspiracy theory
board he's got
stuff.
Like a cigarette. He's pointing at it and shit. Like that's explaining Hawkman's continuity. All right. Like we would be here all fucking night. And I would need to do research first, too.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, but back to the original point of why I was trying to call. So they had these two female characters, and I used to like them a lot. But then when they reintroduced them, like, okay, maybe they're getting better. And they did not get better with the writing in DC when they reintroduced these two characters. Kane is... I think if Undertow's still here, she's like X-23, where she was basically trained from birth to be an assassin. So much so that like her dad didn't teach her how to read or write or talk because he wanted her to interpret people's body languages to give her an edge in hand-to-hand combat. And it was an interesting character trait for a comic.
Comic book logic.
It's comic books. What do you want? I mean, they're fighting TV monsters.
Yeah. Well, she knew some. I mean, she understood English. She just could, when she talked, she sounded like a retard, basically. She sounded like a deaf girl because, like, she was basically forbidden to talk.
No, she didn't understand English so much as she could just understand what people were trying to communicate based on how they moved and, I guess, maybe the tone in their voice or something. Because she could understand foreign languages also, which is kind of neat. But she couldn't talk back to them because she couldn't talk very well. They had to solve that problem very quickly, I think, when they gave her own comic because she didn't have the same quality of internal monologue, I think, was the problem. But she'd pick up like pieces of paper and, to Robin or Nightwing and be like pointing at it and pointing at her. It's like, read this to me. It's like, oh yeah, you can't read. This piece of paper says this.
Were they reintroduced in the New 52 or in this Rebirth stuff?
They get reintroduced in the New 52, and I think they're still in Rebirth.
Well, see, here's the thing about the New 52. New 52 missed the point of so much, so badly. I mean, it's kind of a superficial example, but just to nail it down, in the New 52, Harley Quinn dresses like a whore, and Poison Ivy is covered up. Like everything is on its head, and none of the writers even seem to understand how badly they had fucked things up. I mean, just basic things like removing Cyborg from the history of Teen Titans and removing Martian Manhunter from the history of Justice League removes the heart and soul of both of those teams, respectively. And nobody seemed to grasp that. They were just like, "We'll put Cyborg in the Justice League because we need another black guy, right?" Everything in it was so ass backwards. The New 52 in general felt like filtering DC Comics through early image sensibilities. And I mean that in the worst possible way. And that makes sense when you consider Jim Lee was one of the major creative forces behind the New 52. And Jim Lee is a fucking hack, all right? Jim Lee is a tremendously talented artist.
Yes.
But that is it. That is it. He is a shit writer. He is a shit character designer. The only thing Jim Lee should be doing on a comic book is drawing exactly what the writer told him to, like a good little pencil monkey. because the moment he gets out of that, everything goes to ass. All right. That's why, you know.
No, my friend got into it was the comic that introduced Grifter, and everyone became a Grifter fanboy. But he got into that, and I think it was drawn by Jim Lee. And it was very nice to look at, but it was awful to read. I just couldn't get into it as much as I tried.
Like, did you ever read a comic book with Gambit and thought, you know, this is nice and all, but what if he had no personality? I think I'd prefer that.
That's some good Jim Lee art right there.
Now, Jim Lee's a tremendously talented artist. Nothing else, though. Like I said, he should draw exactly what the writer tells him, like a good pencil monkey. And, well, I have an idea for a new costume. No, you don't. You draw the fucking costume I told you, all right?
No. So anyway,
solid in the New 52. Damn solid. The Justice League, the first Justice League arc is good if you take it as if it was an Elseworlds tale, I would probably really like it because it feels like Justice League almost filtered through the sensibilities of an Ultimate book, like Marvel's early Ultimate line stuff. Because like it's Justice League if everyone is an asshole, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Like the only one who's not an asshole is Batman. Again, showing you how much we've missed the fucking point. Like Batman's like, can we be adults and professional here? And everyone else is like whipping their dicks out trying to measure it. But it's good for what it is. If it was an alternate universe, if like New 52's Justice League story took place on like World Earth 17 or something, I would have found it really interesting. But as it stands, it's a poor mainstream Justice League book. The one that is good though was the Aquaman book, because again, it didn't even need a reboot. You know, it could have easily fit in the old universe with maybe some minor tweaks to it, and there was nothing bold and exciting about it. It was basically like, hey, you know that writer we have, Jeff Jones, who's really, really good at writing books with B and C-list DC characters? Basically anyone but the big three, Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman, he turns to gold at DC. Well, what if we give him Aquaman? Well, that's not doing something new so much as doing... That's just doing the obvious. You know, this is the guy who made people give a fuck about the Justice Society in the early 2000s, all right?
Who?
Basically the Golden Age version of the Justice League.
Oh.
You know, he made people give a fuck about Alan Scott and Jay Garrick. All right? The Golden Age Green Lanterns and Flash, respectively. That was his first major book at DC, was JSA. He brought back JSA into the modern DC universe and made people give a fuck about it.
Yeah, that had repercussions for a long time because they kept Jason Garrett around, and I don't know if the Green Lantern was around so much, but he became basically big in the Flash continuity. Jay Garrett?
Yeah. And, you know, with Jay Garrett and Alan Scott, I believe they were the only ones that actually were around during the Golden Age. The rest were like characters that were taking up the mantle of Golden Age characters. But there are actually in-universe explanations for why they aren't, you know, 104. You know what I mean? Like why they haven't aged as fast as they should have.
Yeah, well, they should probably just try and get away with like fuzzy math for that. It's like, who cares? Don't ask questions. Just enjoy this. It's a comic book.
Well, with Jay Garrett, he was trapped in the Speed Force for several years, apparently. And then Alan Scott was kept young by the power of his ring. And it's like, okay, fine. You know, I'll accept that.
Okay. Oh, but with the New 52, I was excited because they're bringing the characters back. It's like, okay, maybe they're trying to unfuck everything. I think they just try to bring them back get the fans to try to buy into it, and also to, I don't know, no other good reason, because one of the big things about the Cassandra Cain character was, like, she was trained by her dad to be a killer, but she didn't like that, so she sort of ran to Batman to fight for good. And it was always the push-pull of, kill for my father, or fight for justice for Batman. And that was like a big thing for her. And also she was mentored by Batgirl. But when they brought her back, like her dad's like this whiny pussy who gets killed by the guy or the girl he's working for. So that's like that part of her character is automatically taken away. She could speak English very well. So that thing that gave her a reason to communicate with the other characters and not be so much of a loner is gone, because she doesn't need to learn from them how to be a normal human being. So she's kind of just this hollowed out thing. And
yeah, they totally ruined her character. I don't want to see a woman talking.
I know. I mean, she's be in the kitchen making sandwiches.
Exactly.
All that fun stuff. But I guess she just exists to be another generic fighter in running around Gotham with Batman.
The bad books. I mean, they fared some of the best from the New 52, and even I thought a lot of this is crap. A lot of this is stupid shock value that barely makes sense. I mean, the Joker cut his face off or something. Like, what? Why?
That was weird.
When something doesn't even make sense for the Joker to do.
I don't even know if they've figured out a way to put his face back on yet.
You know what's coming out in April that I'm really excited for? Rebirth has been pretty good, and I covered on here before that in Rebirth it seems like we're finding out that the guy behind the New 52, like quote unquote in universe, the being that created the shitty New 52 universe and fucked everything up, has turned out to be Dr. Manhattan from the Watchmen universe. And in the Rebirth one shot, Batman finds the fucking button, the smiley button with the blood stain in his cave, and he doesn't know what it is, but he's like, I guess, basically Flash
with the world's worst clue.
Yeah, I mean that means that means nothing to him. Like what asshole left this button in my fucking? Well, I think it's like they scanned extra dimensional energies or some horse shit on it. Well, finally they're following up on that here in April with an issue of Batman and Flash, where the pair of them are trying to figure out what the hell's going on with that. So finally we're following up on the Dr. Manhattan as a bad guy thing, which I'm really excited about. Right before.
Wait, which Flash? Barry Allen or I think
Barry Allen. Well, Barry Allen's a detective.
Wally West is also running around as the Flash, which makes it really weird because Black Wally West is running around as Kid Flash. I don't know if there's a white Kid Flash running around also. I think there is. I think Bart Allen's white Kid Flash running around also.
Yeah. But anyways, Barry Allen and Batman are gonna, and I'm excited to see where they go with this. I like the idea of that. I like it a lot. It's funny too. Right before Rebirth, Batman got basically the one chair. What the hell is that character's name from New Gods? He flies around in this like cosmic chair.
The Mobius chair.
Yeah, that can answer all the questions of the universe and shit. So like Batman tests it out and says, "What is the Joker's real name?" And the chair says there are 3 Jokers. And that's when he finds out that there are Jokers from parallel worlds running around fucking the world, and they probably each know of each other and they don't care. They're the Joker. But yeah, that was kind of interesting. So I like where DC is going primarily. They're clearly trying to fix a lot of their mistakes here. They're not perfect about it, but it's become apparent in DC that the New 52 is a butt fucking disaster, and they are trying to fix it. And I commend them for that. Rebirth, current status quo. It's not quite where DC was, but it's much, much better.
That's good. Maybe in a couple of years I can get back into comics. Who knows?
Well, right now, the only things I'm really reading right now are primarily like intercompany crossovers because I'm a sucker for anything kind of interdimensional stories. There's a Power Rangers Justice League crossover, which is really good. The Boom Power Ranger comic is actually way better than it has any right to be. I was never a big Power Ranger fan as a kid. But the Boom Power Ranger comic is pretty damn good, surprisingly damn good. There's a Green Lantern Planet of the Apes crossover, which is way better than it has any right to be. There's a second Green Lantern Star Trek crossover, which is a sequel to last year's, which is pretty damn good. And there's a Batman Ninja Turtle crossover, a second one going on right now. Last year there was a Batman Ninja Turtle crossover that was pretty good, so they decided to do a sequel to it. And then this one's called Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Adventure, and it's a crossover between the Batman the animated series world and the current Ninja Turtles cartoon universe that's on Nickelodeon. So basically, like, I really like the idea of that. It's like, hey, we did a Batman Ninja Turtle crossover last year that was really popular. Let's do a sequel. I know, for the sequel, let's cross over 2 different Batman Turtles universes.
I don't get your fascination with crossovers, Chris, because crossovers will forever be the weirdest and dorkiest thing about geek culture to me.
First of all, I love I love the idea of parallel universes.
Well, it gives like 2 sets of different good characters a chance to interact.
I know. Maybe I took too many English classes, but I just feel like, that's you're putting these characters in a situation that they were never designed for, kind of thing. And I understand that that's part of the appeal. But
yeah, that's part of the appeal. It's I mean, that's all the fucking DC and Marvel universes are at their core. It's a bunch of shit that doesn't belong together, and it's all thrown together to see how this stuff bounces off of each other.
Fair enough.
I mean, shit, the lineup of the Avengers shouldn't be standing next to each other.
Norse gods and World War II heroes and scientific experiments and Russian assassins.
I'm starting to realize why I don't like comics in general that much.
Let's take a character from a Bond movie and stick him with a Norse god. See how that works.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, what if Jason Bourne hung out with a giant monster? And it's awesome.
Was that fan art? It's got to be fan art.
Wait, what is? I'm not looking at this.
Like the Turtles Batman thing.
Yeah.
Or one of them's the Joker. Yeah. I guess real quick, I'll get to...
Other than that, are like Darkwing Duck and Sonic the Hedgehog. I mean, like there's no Marvel comics I read right now.
Yeah, but what you're talking about, where them trying to get back to basics and just trying to undo all the SJW bullshit they inserted into their comics, is made me hopeful again that Marvel will get.
I mean, like, this is how much better DC is right now, and I realize it's a crossover with Boom, but like Green Lantern Planet of the Apes is not a fucking crossover I would ever fucking imagine doing, and I love crossovers. And the storyline of it is, we're at issue 2 now, and what it turns out is like Hal Jordan's investigating some sort of like some Green Lantern got sucked into a parallel universe basically, and Hal Jordan investigates it, and he was following Sinestro. Sinestro's doing some shit there. Well, it turns out that there's a ring on the Planet of the Apes universe from the DC universe that one of these apes gets a hold of, and it's like a universal ring that can harness the power of any of the any of the spectrum colors, right? And we come to find out in issue 2 that it's something that one of the Guardians created like early on when they were trying to make the rings, and it like they had to get rid of it because it turned out it was kind of alive, like it was sort of sentient and it would influence people. And,
one ring to rule them all.
So the reason they sent it to that universe is because the Planet of the Apes timeline is caught in a time loop. And that sort of separates it from other timelines in hypertime. And that's like an obscure bit of Planet of the Apes trivia, because most people forget that the original Planet of the Apes movie had 4 fucking sequels.
No, I tried watching the second one. I
They
couldn't
were
take more than
all
15
ass.
minutes of it. It was
Yeah, they were
awful.
They were ass.
I think there's one where like the apes travel back in time
That
and
is
like
the-
celebrities.
It's the fifth one where the apes travel back in time, and basically by doing that, they trigger the events that lead to the first movie, that lead to the world turning into Planet of the Apes. So that's what they meant by that universe is caught in a time loop.
Yeah, thank you, Sci-Fi Channel, for airing that when they tried to reboot the series.
Like, I like that. Like, we take this obscure bit of Planet of the Apes continuity to explain why we're using that universe here, and it's amazing that a Planet of the Apes Green Lantern crossover makes far more sense than the shit going on at Marvel. Cough, cough. Magneto's a Nazi. Like I said, it's far better than it has any right to be, and I love the hell out of that.
Yeah, it's always good to be pleasantly surprised. Well, I think I've taken up a good amount of time. I'm sure you have more callers, and I need to get to bed because some of us have church tomorrow.
Well, it looks like I don't have any more callers, actually, because it doesn't look like Liam is able to get his mic to work in Hangouts. And in all fairness, Hangouts is kind of fucking... I believe it was programmed by an ape, so that could actually be why.
Program of the Apes.
It was programmed by... the ape's name was Leslie Jones, actually. They trained it to be in a Ghostbusters movie recently. Yeah, that's the Ghostbusters Planet of the Apes crossover. That was not very good.
I thought it was very touching at the end when they dedicated it to her brother Harambe.
Yeah, nobody liked that. Yeah, I got an idea. Let's take this beloved movie and remake it with 3 lesbians and a gorilla. Didn't turn out well. It's funny too, my buddy, because like I hate the rebooted Star Trek. I really do. I think it's ass. And a buddy of mine was like, "Well, what do you hate worse, that or the rebooted Ghostbusters?" I'm like, having never even seen the rebooted Ghostbusters, I can confidently say I hate the rebooted Ghostbusters more. Because here's the thing. Star Trek, while I loved it and it was something I adored as a kid, particularly The Next Generation, it's hit or miss. It really is. All right. Star Trek's had some pretty damn fucking low points. It is occasionally brilliant, and I love it for that. It is often dumb as hell. Whereas Ghostbusters was kind of batting 1,000 there. All right. It had one of the best movies ever made. It had a direct sequel that's only real crime was not being as good as the amazing movie it followed. It had an amazing animated series for the time. We talked about animated series that, didn't talk down to kids and all. Ghostbusters was one of those. Now, towards the end of its run, it got kind of bad because the networks interfered with it. It became like Slimer and the new Ghostbusters. But even those aren't bad for a kid's show.
Wasn't it half Ghostbusters, like half Slimer?
Yeah, again,
I only watched half those episodes.
Even those weren't bad for a kid's show. Whereas the original Ghostbusters cartoon, like the original season of it, is actually damn good. Even if you're an adult, you can get a kick out of it. Hell, it even had like a follow-up show in the 90s that wasn't bad, where it was like a new generation of Ghostbusters. The Extreme Ghostbusters, that even wasn't that bad. So Ghostbusters have got a pretty damn good batting average. So to then come along and do this with it, that's pretty bad. Whereas the rebooted Star Trek, I mean, those movies are ass. But if I'm being perfectly honest with you, regular old Star Trek continuity has had lower moments. I mean, Star Trek the Motion Picture, the first ever Star Trek movie, is it took me years before I could finally say I sat through it in one sitting. Like, I was like 21, 22 or something when I finally was like, just so I say I did, I'm going to sit down and watch this on Wednesday. It is so fucking boring, if nothing else. Voyager is obviously pretty bad, which is a shame because on paper, it actually has the most potential based on premise. I don't think it's as bad as everyone says, but it's rough. Enterprise is virtually unwatchable.
Oh God.
I mean, as much as people want to shit on Voyager, I will watch a season of Voyager before I will watch half of an episode of fucking Enterprise. All right.
I watched the second half of Voyager when it was on, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good.
Voyager
I knew it was something
had
to
its
watch
real
after Deep
moments.
Space Nine. I tried watching the first season, and I was like, "Oh my God, how did this make it out of the first season?"
The first season of Deep Space Nine is rough, and for the longest time, I thought I hated Deep Space Nine because of it. But Deep Space Nine ended up getting phenomenal. By the end of Deep Space Nine, it was some of the best Star Trek that has ever Star Trek.
Oh yeah,
because it's not very much like Star Trek.
But I love geeking out about the Dominion War.
I mean, hell, even the original series, for as much as it's lauded by Star Trek fans, you know, there's an old Futurama thing where they were talking about Star Trek, the original show, and Fry describes it as 72 episodes, about 30 good ones. And that's about what it is. Again, it occasionally reached this level of brilliance, but for the most part, it stayed at this level of sometimes barely watchable schlock. I mean, hell, even the fucking movies famously have this 50-50 fucking like streak where the odd number movies were generally ass.
Oh, do you ever see the picture where they count Galaxy Quest, the Star Trek movie, because it makes it so every other one is good or bad? Because I think it's like between Insurrection and Nemesis, they shove it in there.
That's pretty funny.
You know, okay, so 1 is ass, 2 is amazing, 3 is not that bad.
I'd argue it's good for Star Trek fans, but if you don't care about like the characters or Spock, it's pretty boring for the first part. Although Star Trek 3 is the reason I started watching Star Trek.
Christopher Lloyd's Klingon, though, and it's fucking great.
No, the end where Kirk kicks
the,
him into a volcano. I was like, this is Star Trek? What is this Next Generation bullshit on TV? I'm like, I'm going to watch this Kirk stuff.
4 I think is the weakest of the even numbers because it's just a big old joke fest. But if you take it like that, it's actually good. 5 is bad. 5 is almost 1 bad.
Wait. So I was rewatching 4 recently, and I just went home for vacation. My sister's there watching it with us. We put something on to have in the background while we're talking. And when they are back in time flying over San Francisco, Sulu goes, San Francisco, I was born here. She starts laughing. It's like, haha, it's funny because he's gay now. Yeah, but 5 was pretty.
5 is bad. And again, 5 actually has really on paper it has a lot of potential, but it's just so botched.
I tried rewatching it. The execution is just so awful. It's a mess.
6 is like on paper kind of one of the like safest of the original the original crew movies, but it for some reason it just really works. I really like 6, and I have a hard time even putting my finger on why, because there's nothing that spectacular about it, but it's just something about it just really works. Once you get into next gen movies, things are kind of rough. I mean, 7, I enjoyed it when I first saw it just because it wrapped up a lot of loose ends from the show. But as far as an actual movie, it's ass. 8 is good, but then it's hard to not be good when the Borg are involved.
I always say that it's the Borg are the perfect villain for Picard.
9 I liked when I first saw, but after I watched it a few times, I began to pick it apart, and then I'm like, okay, this is actually pretty bad. Nemesis, I don't mind. I think Nemesis is all right. It's by no means good, but to be fair, and I hate saying this because I love the Next Gen crew, but the Next Gen movies are bad. I think just the nature of the original crew lends themselves to movies more than the Next Gen crew. I mean, like half of the fucking Next Gen episodes were just character studies where we're sitting around in the fucking ready room talking about what to do about shit. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with that.
Isn't that what Star Trek is about?
If it's well written and it's well acted, that can be extremely good. but that's not necessarily a movie. That's a week-to-week TV show.
Well, it's harder with the Next Gen crew because it's really more of an ensemble cast than the original crew, because you had the big three.
Yeah, the original crew, it was the big three. I mean,
so it's nice that Chekhov and Sulu and Uhura are along for the ride, but
they're definitely supporting.
They don't have to have action scenes. They don't have to have all these big things to be integral to the plot. But for the Next Gen crew, everyone had to be doing something.
Like that's the thing. They shoehorned in so many fucking action scenes. Like, and I think it's in Nemesis where Riker, I think it's in Nemesis. Riker is fighting this fucking alien dude, this big tough alien dude, and it's like this fucking 45-minute fucking fight scene that we just keep cutting to periodically. Is that the rest of the movie is happening? Riker's beating the shit out of this guy. And then there's like this dune buggy fucking scene or something in it.
Yeah.
Like, there's all sorts of like shoehorned in action scenes where it's like,
hey guys, I can get access for the whole crew to some dune buggies for the weekend. Why don't we put this in the movie?
Yeah, and it's
that sounds like fun. I always wanted to run around the desert in a dune buggy.
Yeah, you could almost tell like Patrick Stewart was like, I want to be in a dune buggy. It's like I think Nemesis is not as bad as everyone says, but it's easily the second best Next Gen movie for whatever that's worth. I've only seen the first two of the rebooted ones. I think the first of the rebooted Star Trek is absolute shit.
It's better in the second.
I kind of like the second a touch better, to be honest.
What's wrong with you? Sorry,
but like
it's.
But that's because they're
both pretty shallow. But I think the first one had a lot better execution for a shallow movie. The second one was just such a muddled mess of plot holes.
In the second one, there's parts in the beginning where I start to get my hopes up that maybe like the writers actually fucking realize what the hell Star Trek's about. Like, they're debating the morals of going, will we start a war with them? And I'm like, oh, okay, we're gonna sit around, all right, I like where we're going, and then it's like, oh, okay, we threw all that out the window, never mind. But there was a brief moment where I had my hopes up that maybe somebody involved in the movie got the point. Whereas I never had any glimmers of hope like that in the first fucking one. Or like right from the get-go, I knew this was fucking J.J. Abrams auditioning for Star Wars.
If I can switch over to Superman real quick, I think the reason I like the Superman movie more than my friends is that reason, because I thought they were going for something like a little deeper, a little interesting, because there's this theme of eugenics and Superman's, like, he's going to have his own destiny and things like that, which they completely drop. It's like, I was made to do this, and I will fulfill my mission, and you destroy my mission, which is why I'm Zod and I'm evil. But
you know what? In all fairness, at least Man of Steel Zod had some goddamn character.
Oh no, Zod was the best thing in that movie. I mean,
at least he had some. Yeah, at least he had some motivation. Like fucking Superman 2 Zod is just like, I'm just a dick. Like that's it.
Yeah, I never really got into Superman 2. I like Superman 1 just because it's a fun movie, and there's a lot of things wrong with it, but it's an enjoyable watch.
It's not bad, and I can respect what it probably was for the time, but I mean, honestly, I don't think there's any good Superman movies, if I'm being honest with you. Superman 2, I like. Man of Steel, I like. After that, I put basically Superman Returns and the first Superman movie about on the same level of, it's all right. And then, I mean, obviously Superman 3 and 4, I guess it was, those were, universally considered ass. But even the Superman movie, Superman 1 and 2, these amazing movies everyone says, it's like sacrilege among some of my fellow comic book geeks to be like, those movies kind of suck.
Yep. I'm not quite old enough for everyone I know in my social circle to have seen those movies. I've only seen the first two, actually. I think there's 4 original ones with Christopher Reeves.
Well, you got to understand, if it's a comic book movie from the 2000s and earlier, I've fucking seen it. Like, you got to, like, because comic book movies were kind of the rarity before about 2000. You know what I mean? Like I've seen fucking Supergirl, all right? And that shit's hard to get through.
Jeez.
Like, I've seen the Man-Thing movie, all right? In fact, the only one...
First in line for Howard the Duck. I've seen that movie.
I rented Howard the Duck when I started getting into comic books. I was like, oh, I didn't know they made it. I was like, holy shit, this is
Do you guys know Davis Arini's in that?
Yeah, Davis Arini is in Howard the Duck. Make no mistake. In that bar fight scene. I wish I had that video. Make no mistake. Davis Arini is in that bar fight scene. It's got the mannerisms down pat. All right, Davis Arini, or you know what? Maybe Davis Arini is a time traveler, and he will be in Howard the Duck. You ever stop thinking about that? Well, no, like the only ones I didn't see in the theater, like through the whole decade of the 2000s, was Halle Berry's Catwoman, because fuck that. And
yeah, I think everybody saw that coming and was like, what?
And I didn't see Elektra like for the longest time. I think it was like 2013 when I finally sat down and watched Elektra. It's fucking ass. And in fact, Jennifer Gardner as Elektra is the really only big flaw in the Daredevil movie.
Make the entire sequel about that.
Yeah, so let's make exactly. We didn't get a Daredevil 2. We got Elektra. I mean, if you look at like the DVD box of Daredevil, it's Daredevil and Elektra standing there. Like that movie is so much her movie, even like the first Daredevil. And it just
like, why?
Everything about it.
Does anybody like that character that much?
I don't fucking get it with Elektra. If I'm like, to be honest, she's damn near the weakest part of Daredevil season 2 on Netflix. Like, she's basically the reason I consider Daredevil season 1 a masterpiece. Season 2 is good. That character sucks. All right. First of all, that character was created to die. All right. That character was introduced with the idea of having this redemptive death, and that was it. And then because nothing can ever fucking stick in comics, it's the best and worst thing about it. We brought her back through fucking magic or some shit like that.
Oh my god!
And then she's back and she's fine. And
I just realized something. Again. I just realized something.
What?
That's basically Shadow the Hedgehog. Edgy character that was meant to have a redemptive death at the end of its original story, brought back and ruined the franchise.
Here's the thing with Elektra. Like, Karen Page is a better love interest. And then characters like Typhoid Mary are better femme fatales. So Elektra serves no fucking purpose, all right? The only time Elektra has been ever remotely interesting was in a New Avengers storyline. Elektra was working for the Hand, the ninja group, and somehow she gets killed in the middle of this fight, and they look over and she's a Skrull. Like, when she died, she reverted to the Skrull form. And they were like, well, how the fuck long has Elektra been a Skrull? And that led into the Secret Invasion storyline. That was the only time I ever read a comic book with Elektra where something directly involving Elektra had me saying, oh, shit, I want to know more. Normally, I'm like, when will she leave?
Yeah, the worst part about that is it could have been really any character.
I wish they would have just said she never came back from the dead and she's been a Skrull since her return.
Oh, that'd be
I
interesting.
would have been happy with that. Because then I never have to see her dumbass again.
The seeds of Secret Invasion are deep.
The lore is rich, let me tell you.
So I'm going to start referring to Elektra the Hedgehog.
Does she have any kind of time manipulation powers?
To be fair, I don't find Shadow the Hedgehog nearly as annoying.
No. His original characterization in his the first Sonic Adventure 2, when he first appears, it's actually not bad at all. He's not that edgy. He's really not. And yeah, could have been. It must have been nice to be young again and to think that was going to stick. That he was just going to be this cool one-off character.
Skrull Electra.
Electra the Skrull Hog.
It's funny too. You mentioned like she could have just been any character in that storyline. There was an Avengers cartoon in the early, I guess, 10s, we'll call this decade, called Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Now, there's currently an Avengers cartoon called Avengers Assemble, because as soon as Disney got the rights, they canceled that cartoon and made their own, which was shittier than the one they canceled. Thanks, Disney. But Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes is damn good. It's one of the best superhero cartoons ever made. It's pretty much on par with Justice League Unlimited. And they did their own Secret Invasion storyline in it, and the big reveal that Skrulls had infiltrated was a character named Madame Hydra, which was just a female leader of Hydra. She gets killed and reverts to a Skrull. So literally, like, the only interesting thing Elektra's done in like fucking 20 years could have been any fucking character.
Yeah, with the Secret Invasion, I thought they were actually going to, because it was after Civil War, like explain a lot of the weird stuff that Cap and Iron Man wouldn't talk it out by having them both be Skrulls or something like that. Because they were supposed to be like the top level people or some of the top, you know, it's an invasion of the body snatchers. You don't know who's original and who's not. Turns out basically all the big characters are still originally them. Spoilers. Except for, I think, Spider-Woman was the big Skrull infiltrator on the Avengers, and everyone else was just normal.
Hank Pym had been replaced by Skrulls for a while too.
Oh, okay.
That was probably when he hit his wife.
No, that was still Hank.
No, it's like she
But I'm
went
sure he's
like,
telling everybody.
Honey, are you feeling okay? You haven't hit me at all today.
I'm sure he's telling everybody that though afterwards when he gets back. When did you get replaced? When did I start slapping Jan around? It was right before that. Are you sure? It doesn't. It seems like according to this alien database here, no. Shut up. In fact, you know it's funny you should mention that. Quicksilver, right after House of M, ended up doing some really shitty stuff. I'm not going to get into it, but like he did some really shitty stuff, right? And after Secret Invasion, he blamed it all on a Skrull. And basically got away with it.
Nice.
Like he's just like
genius.
He's kind of like, you know, like I feel really bad about that stuff and I want to be like back in everybody's good graces. So like yeah, that was not me. That was somebody else. But, you know, I'm sure he's really sorry about it. Like,
I was on a different ship, not the one you guys were on. I was in my own special ship that I couldn't speed out of. That's why you didn't see me. Yeah.
That was somebody. That was probably a Skrull. But like, I'm sure that Skrull feels really bad about it. So can we all move on? Like, and I think he basically just like nobody really found out. Everybody's just like, yeah, because that didn't seem like you. That guy was a real ass. Oh, Lordy. Oh, shit. It's after 11 already.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody got any closing thoughts? I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up.
Donald Trump is also as a woman.
What? Okay.
Donald Trump's a woman?
No. It turns out Donald Trump is even more awesome as a woman.
Oh, yeah, the body language thing. I'm sorry. You just blurted that out too fast for me to process.
Pauses between words.
Really weird fan art when he's looking at this other stuff.
I'm like, man.
I've seen Anime Girl Trump several times.
It's like, man, the news cycle.
I hope to never see that.
It's actually pretty
really
funny.
is getting crazy here, folks. Anybody else got any closing thoughts?
Avatar: The Last Airbender was really good. Don't watch The Legend of Korra; it was awful, except for the fight scenes because it's actually really well drawn.
The ER guy that we mentioned earlier just put up his last episode, tearing apart the second season of Korra today, and he also did the first season, but then he stopped watching after that, so he was just done. So
yeah, it's pretty awful, but like I said, the fight scenes are amazing. So if you appreciate good artwork,
yeah, if you appreciate delicious brown girls, just look at the fan art. It's way better because they like draw with washboard abs and stuff. It's great.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, so thanks everybody for listening. Do check out the sponsor, Race Riot Apparel, because that helps me keep doing this. You know, the more you guys check out the sponsors, the more the sponsors want to be sponsors. And also make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. That helps me out. And if you would be so kind as to check out the tip jar, I would greatly appreciate that as well. So thanks everybody for listening. That's all we got for this week. Bechtloff out.